Hello everyone. If you are new to my channel, then consider liking and subscribing. It will make me feel wonderful if you do it. Thanks. By the way, I also have a Naruto fanfiction channel. If you are interested, the link is in the description. Lost One by Hyperguy Oda-sama recently revealed that Luffy's devil fruit was not what we thought. So here's a question. What if Luffy not only had the power of a god, but the guidance of one as well? Luffy's harem as his entire crew. Basically, Luffy is going to be really overpowered from the start, and he will be able to create devil fruits. I don't own anything, adios.
Chapter 8. Making waves at the Barati, the chef, the drifter and the queen. In about a day's time, the only floating restaurant in the world was in sight. Everyone crowded around the front of the Mary to witness it, gawking in excitement. Oh goodness, it's just like father described it, Kaya gushed. He used to have important meetings here. The food is supposed to be divine. So, this is where we can find a cook for our ship? Kuina asked. Looking at the cheery seafoam green paint job and the huge fish head off one side, she was not very confident they would meet someone willing to live a pirate's life. Oh, definitely, big sis. The cooks here aren't just good, but they're tough as nails. They've gotta be. They get pirates eating here all the time. Luffy was excited as any of them, but he turned to the side. Everyone followed his gaze and were surprised to see a marine ship was pulling alongside them. They noticed a man in a fine light blue suit standing on deck, turning to face them with a raised eyebrow. Never seen that Jolly Roger before, he noted. Who are you all? Where's the captain of this vessel? Luffy stepped forward immediately. I am. A newbie, huh? Don't recognize any of your crewmates either. The marine was about to point out how strange it was that everyone else on board was female, only to spot two figures hiding behind the ajar door to the cabin. Hey, you two, I've seen you before. The small-time bounty hunters. Finally got yourself caught, huh? Johnny and Yosaku both growled at the insult, quickly pulling out their swords and planning on teaching this guy a lesson. But both were held back by Luffy. Don't. He's not worth it. Grr, quite the mouth you've got there, pirate. The marine was stopped when an attractive blonde lady in a red cocktail dress placed a hand on his shoulder. Come now, full body, aren't you supposed to be off duty? You booked this table over a month in advance. The marine turned to his date, his eyes softening before leveling a smirk at Luffy. Consider yourself lucky, pirate. On any other day, Lieutenant Iron Fist Full Body would make an example out of all of you. He brandished a fist, showing off a set of iron knuckles riveted into his hand. But today I have more important business, so I'll let you off with a warning. The lieutenant turned to head into the restaurant just in front of both ships but stuck out his hand in a thumbs down. Sink the ship. It's an eyesore. Many of the pirate crew panicked, but Luffy just stood still, glaring as one of the marine ship's cannons slowly pointed up at the Going Merry. A deafening boom shook the sea as an iron ball flies right into Luffy's fist, shattering into pieces. Don't do that again, he warns the seaman, or I'll sink your ship and see how you like it. Holy crap, he punched the cannonball. How did he move so fast? Lieutenant? Keep it down, idiot. If we interrupt his date, we'll get demoted to chore boys. While the sailors fretted and bickered, Luffy and the crew led themselves into the restaurant. Yosaku and Johnny were the only ones who stayed put, still trying to figure out how Luffy blurred to a different spot so quickly. That ugliness soon faded once Luffy stepped inside the Barati, the ladies all being impressed by the polished linoleum floor, crystal chandelier dangling from the ceiling and the string quartet providing mood music. Wow, fancy. This looks very expensive. Stop eyeing my pockets, you two. Their musing stopped as a woman approached them, dressed in a bright pink sundress that swished around long flowing legs. The clothes matched her bright fuchsia locks, one fringed bang hiding her left eye, as did her high heels that clacked against the tiles. Welcome to the Barati, she bowed before them. I am Reiju, presently the maître of this restaurant. Table for 6? Yes, please. Soon the pirate crew was sat in the center of the dining room, had their drinks in hand and orders taken. The ladies began chatting about whatever was on their mind, namely how excited they were to be in such a classy establishment. Luffy was just eager for the food, his appetite whetted by the heavenly smells coming from the kitchen upstairs. As they waited, Luffy looked behind Kaya and noticed the marine lieutenant from earlier was toasting with his date. Right as the arrogant lieutenant took a sip, he spotted the pirate and almost choked on his vintage. Hey, guess he didn't expect you to be here, Kuina laughed. Serves the jerk right, Kurina agreed. I mean, I've heard of Iron Fist Full Body, but you'd think he's an admiral with how highly he acts. Oh, ignore him, Nami waved off. He can just sit there and play big shot. Besides, we all know Luffy has one thing better than he'll ever have. 4 of the ladies present all giggled at the joke, but Kaya didn't. She was extremely confused. Makino noticed and then whispered something into her ear. The blonde turned tomato red and hurriedly gulped down her glass of water before looking around. Wait, you mean, all of you? There's nothing to be embarrassed about, Nami told her. He likes us, we all like him, everybody wins. Like, seems like an understatement, she muttered. I wondered why you and Karina weren't in your beds that first night, and why some of you keep disappearing until morning. It was true. While he was all business during the day, once the anchor was raised, Luffy felt his lust flare up. He would approach each of his 4 ladies and ask if they were interested in coming to his room. If one said no, he respected their wishes and moved on. And so far, he had at least one taker almost every night. Kaya was bound to notice sooner or later. Right before she could devolve into a mess of embarrassment, Luffy took her hand with a gentle look in his eyes. Kaya, it's true. I've slept with all of these girls, and I love all of them. If it makes you uncomfortable, you don't have to be involved. The blonde marveled at the sincerity in his voice, only giving a little nod as her face slowly returned to its normal color. Reiju thankfully arrived with their appetizers, setting 5 plates in front of Luffy and 1 for each woman. The second each of them took a bite, all of them were in awe. Everything was delicious, from Makino's risotto to Nami's langoustine to Kaya's salad. Each bite was full of flavor and the plates were masterfully presented. While Luffy did show an improvement in table manners, actually using utensils and taking bites one at a time, he still cleaned off all 5 plates before any of them finished. How was everything? Reiju asked them once they were done. Fantastic, the best I've ever had, can we have seconds? Ignore him, his stomach is bigger than his brain. The waitress just chuckled before taking their plates back upstairs and telling them their entrees would be out shortly. All of them watched and noticed the pinkette was impressively swift, capable of carrying dozens of dishes at once, and even caught a falling fork with her foot without dropping the plates. Huh, that's some waitress, Makino said. I wish I was that good at running the bar. There's something unusual about her, Luffy noted. I don't think she's just the waitress here. Oi, Captain? Are you sure you aren't thinking with your Kuina language? Kaya had to fan herself to stop overheating, getting a laugh out of everyone. A harsh slam stopped them, and much of the idle chit-chat of the dining room. They watched Full Body march out the front door, muttering something about teaching those pirates a lesson, before stomping back in a few minutes later. He glanced at Luffy before snarling under his breath and plopping back down in his seat. Sounds like he got the bad news from his crew, Makino guessed. Besides, we haven't technically done anything wrong here. He has no right to do anything to us. The main course then arrived, and once again the focus was on the exquisite food. It didn't matter if it was red meat, white meat or seafoodine was cooked to perfection, and the sides and sauces complemented them to a T. Once again Luffy ate faster than them all, but even he seemed to be savoring every bite. Reiju once again came to check on them, almost blushing as they showered her with praise. I will be sure to tell the kitchen your compliments, she said with the slightest tinge of regret. Are you okay? Oh, yes, she assured Luffy. It does feel quite strange, serving customers when you're the sous chef. Wait, you are? Kaya asked. Then what are you doing out here? You should leading the kitchen. I should be, yes, unfortunately, we're quite short-staffed at the moment as all our waiters quit not long ago. So, you can cook? Luffy clarified. I'd like to think so, Reiju chuckled. I've been studying under the head chef here since I was a child. Hey, waitress. I need to talk to you, the pinkette bit back a retort as she walked over to Full Body's table, the Marine whispering something in her ear. She quickly headed off back up the spiral staircase in the center of the room, leaving the Straw Hats waiting for their dessert. They were quite surprised when the sous chef returned with 4 bottles of wine under one arm and half a dozen goblets in the other. Compliments of the Marine gentleman over there, Reiju explained. He said he wished to apologize for his poor decorum from earlier. Luffy stared at the bottles for a minute before looking up. I don't know much about wine, can you help? Why, of course. Reiju then walked him through what paired with what, then poured each woman a glass before leaving to check on their desserts. Nami and Karina even blew a kiss at the lieutenant, thanking him for the free wine, leaving him furious. What the heck is going on? He growled. What kind of pirate turns down free booze? He should be chugging it all himself and making a drunken ass. Who are you talking to? Full Body looked up and noticed his date was looking less than impressed, swirling her wine around in boredom. The Marine then noticed that much of the dining room had gone quiet and was staring at him. The only exception was the Straw Hats, chatting and laughing as they enjoyed his little present. Stop looking at them. Full Body turned to his date, now glaring daggers. Moody, listen. Oh, now you want me to listen? I've been trying to have a wonderful date, but ever since those pirates got here, you've been obsessed with them. It's the principle of it all, he shouted. Look at them, mocking me. Mocking you how? By sitting in here, eating and drinking like everyone else? A full-blown argument broke out, the lieutenant berating Moody how she didn't understand, and Marine protocol. This and my reputation, that. Soon the entire dining room, along with several of the cooks from upstairs, were watching the lieutenant shout at his own date. Moody, meanwhile, pointed out how she's barely gotten 3 sentences out of him since they showed up. He walked out to check on the ship as she was talking, and now has blown more money on that wine than their entire meal. Excuse me, sir? What? Reiju didn't flinch even as Full Body screamed at her. I'm afraid you're making a scene and disturbing the other diners, Please, calm down. Don't you start giving me attitude, too. Why the fuck did you pour wine for them all? The captain was supposed to drink it all? Your instructions were, give that table 4 bottles of our best wine, on me. Tell him it is an apology for my behavior. Pardon me, sir, but I believe I can see why you're not a captain. The entire dining room broke out into laughter at Full Body's expense. Moody tittered behind her hand, trying to at least look polite. The same could not be said for Luffy and his girls, all back in their chairs guffawing while the captain pounded the table with his fist. That tears it. Full Body marched past Reiju and pointed at Luffy. You're under arrest. Huh? For what? That's not important. He has every right to ask, jackass, Kuina demanded. We haven't done anything here. Oh, you want to get arrested too, bitch? Fine, you can share a cell with him. That's enough, Moody called. I can't believe I ever liked you, consider us through. Ooh. The rest of the diners went as Moody picked up her purse and strode out through the front door, leaving Full Body shocked while Luffy and his crew just laughed at him. Now then, sir, either return to your seat or what, huh? The lieutenant, now red in the face, marched back to his table and picked up his mostly uneaten plate. You listen to me, you stupid waitress, I'm the customer here. I pay you. I can do whatever I want to this food because it's my money. To prove his point, he slammed the dish down causing bits of sauce and vegetables, and shards of ceramic, to fly through the air while a piece of steak flopped onto the floor. He then stepped back towards Reiju and jabbed his finger into her chest. Now, you're going to stay out of my way. This is official marine business. Reiju's eyes were hidden behind her hair as she walked towards the poor piece of meat sitting on the ground. She knelt down, gently picking it up even as it dripped juice. This was filet mignon, imported from an organic cattle ranch in the West Blue. Dry-aged for 17 days and cooked to perfection, and you just ruined it. What the hell does that matter? Who are you to lecture me, huh, waitress? I am the sous chef of this restaurant. You will not disrespect food around me, even if it is not my cooking. Now, sir, either apologize or leave. Full Body brandished his famous metal fists. You're going to boss me around now? You better hope I don't have the inspector shut this place down before. The lieutenant's mouth dropped as Reiju, in the blink of an eye, grabbed a hold of his hands. He desperately tried to pull back but her grip was like iron. Her one visible eye glared through him. And since you have refused to leave, it falls to me to remove you personally. Ah, damn it. Not again. The princess is on the rampage. Reiju, will you quit doing that? Luffy and the girls looked up as several of the chefs, brandishing knives and ladles but didn't step in as Reiju pummeled the lieutenant with no effort. A single punch could floor him and even his famous iron fists were easily stopped by her hand. Soon she was holding Full Body by the collar of his suit as blood dripped down his fingers and forehead. A rhythmic clacking of wood caught the pirate crew's attention, revealing an elderly man in chef's whites including a towering toque several feet tall. Luffy looked down and realized the sound was from the wooden peg that was his right leg. Gah! Head chef Zeph, the rest of the cooks yelled in panic. Damn it, you brat, he called out, put that customer down right now. This is garbage, Reiju insisted, I'm simply tossing him out. We can't keep having scenes like this, you powder puff. The head chef lashed his peg leg out at blinding speed, especially given his age, and smacked the pinkette in the knee, dropping her and the lieutenant in a second. If you aren't causing fights in the kitchen, you're making drama here for the diners. We already lost all our waiters, we don't need this. Well, excuse me if these dishwashers you put on the line aren't up to snuff, she bit back, getting right in Zeph's face. I shouldn't even be out here. I'm the sous chef for a reason. And that damn attitude is why we can't stand you, one of the cooks yelled. You're nothing a spoiled princess. Yeah, you treat the rest of us like utter crap, another accused. Just get out of here already. The rest of the brigade jumped on, chewing out Reiju for being a prima donna and for causing more incidents than any of the cooks. The woman literally stuck her nose up at them, crossing her arms and insulting them back. You all just wait, I'll be the head chef someday and then you won't be so defiant with me. You, head chef? Zeph laughed, keep dreaming, baller nor years in me. Zeph then swung his head down, his massive hat conking Reiju and making her back down. That's enough, all of you, back to work. He then noticed Lieutenant Full Body smirking, clearly happy that the waitress, who embarrassed and injured him was getting her comeuppance. And as for you, that same peg leg smashed into the Marine's face, sending him sprawling and knocking several teeth loose. Beat it, you've caused enough trouble. As the diners murmured and slowly went back to their meals, Full Body dragged himself to his feet. What the fuck is wrong with this place? I thought this was a restaurant, not a pirate ship. Wow, that was some entertainment, Karina said as she finished off the last of her fish. Actually, that's the other thing this restaurant is famous for, Kaya mentioned, the fighting cooks of the Barati. My father once told me that's half the draw of this place. She's awesome, Luffy odd, I want her to be our cook. Of course, you do, Nami sighed, although I seriously wouldn't mind her making this duck. It's almost as good as Lieutenant. A uniformed marine burst through the front door in a cold sweat. He barely paid any mind to his CO being bloodied and battered. "Lieutenant, we have an issue. The prisoner has escaped." "What?" Full Body cried. "That's impossible. He was on the brink of starving and we haven't fed him a crumb." "I know, sir, we need to." A single shot of gunfire echoed through the dining room, silencing everyone. The seaman fell to the floor, a hole in his chest. Standing in the doorway, literally holding the smoking gun, was a tall, lanky man in gray clothing and a promise in his sunken eyes. Whoever stops him is next. The Straw Hats watched the man stroll in, plop himself down a table and even put his feet up. His voice was raspy yet dead serious. "Well, this is a restaurant, right? Where's the service?" One of the cooks, a very burly one with massive forearms and fakest grin imaginable plastered on his bearded face, approached. "Welcome to the Barati, Mr. Crook." The other diners all gasped at this. Several of the cooks just chuckled, but Reiju was not amused. "Now then, how will you paying for your meal today?" The pirate just raised his gun, the barrel aiming right at the chef's head. "Well, I have lead. Does that count?" "So that means no money." The smile vanished in an instant. He swiftly raised his swollen arms and smashed the assailant down, the wooden chair shattering as the pirate collapsed to the floor. "Yeah, good going, Patty," one of the cooks cheered as the whole crew celebrated. Luffy, however, noticed that Reiju was looking down at the fallen sailor in pity and walked up to the kitchen without anyone noticing. As the bandit crawled out the front door, everyone soon returned to their meals. "I think father undersold just how exciting this establishment was," Kayud tittered, a bit shaken from all of this. "But who was that pirate?" "Jin, the man-demon," Kuina answered, "chief of staff of the Krieg pirates, wanted for 12 million Barris. Another pretty big name around here." "Holy crap, you mean those Krieg pirates?" Karina yelped. "The one with 5,000 men and 50 ships?" "So?" The thief turned to Luffy's confused expression with a glare. "So, that's a small army. Even we'd have trouble dealing with that." "Not if they're all weak. It doesn't matter how many there are, it matters how strong each of them is." "He's got a point," Makino added. "There was this bandit group that terrorized our village for years. They easily had almost 100 men at their biggest." "Yeah? And, what, the whole town fought them off?" "Nope. Luffy beat them all by himself, and he was just 10. "Well, yeah, but that's Luffy. I can't do something like that." "Don't say that." The Purpleette was surprised to find Luffy glaring at her. "Don't ever talk like that again. You can do anything you set your mind to. If you want to give up, then you can leave the crew." But Luffy, I'm not strong enough to fight a huge crew of pirates." "Maybe not right now, but that's why you have the devil fruit powers and why I'm training you. So that you can stand up to anyone who gets in the way of your dream." "That's quite admirable." They all turned to see Reiju walking up to them. "I came to apologize for that spectacle. But I couldn't help but overhear, and you, Luffy, are quite surprising for a pirate. To think you'd care so much about your crewmate's ambition." "Well, yeah. Pirates who treat others like tools are all fakers. And here I thought he was just a ladies' man," she thought with a smile. Luffy then noticed the steaming bowl of seafood rice Reiju was carrying on a tray alongside a carafe of water. "Ooh, is that for us?" "No, but I checked and your desserts will be here shortly. Thank you for your patience." The pirates all watched as Reiju took the piping hot food out the front door, much to their confusion. "What, is that her lunch?" Kuina wondered. Luffy didn't think so, standing up and following her out. He then watched as the sous chef sat the tray down right in front of Jin, who was slouched against the deck's railing. "Get rid of that," he grumbled, "I'm no beggar." "No, but you are starving." A loud gurgle from his stomach proved Reiju right, and money or not, it's a chef's duty to feed the hungry. Jin just glared up at her, waiting for her to pull the rug out. But as the pained growling of his stomach kept up, his composure finally cracked. He started shoveling the pilaf into his mouth, crying in delight at his delicious salvation. "Thank you, it's wonderful, the best I've ever had. I really thought I was going to die." "Don't mention it, it's all in a day's work." Only then did Reiju notice Luffy leaning up against the doorway, clearly happy with her. "Yes, can I help you? I want you to join my crew?" "Of pirates, you mean? Sorry, but my duty is here." "Wait, you're a pirate?" Jin asked. "You sure don't look like one." "Yep, that's my ship over there." Luffy jerked his thumb to the Going Merry bobbing in the water. The Krieg pirate just raised an eyebrow at the cheery boat before speaking up. "So, what are you after?" "I'm gonna be the king of the pirates." Reiju's eye widened. "You're completely serious?" "Of course, I'm going to find the One Piece." "You mean you're going to sail to the Grand Line? With just that one ship?" "Yep, kid, let me give you some advice," Jin grumbled. "You're young, there's plenty to see out there without going to the Grand Line. Trust me, that place is a death trap." "Thanks, but the Grand Line is where the treasure is, so, that's where I'm going." Seeing there was no dissuading him, a well-fed Jin hopped onto the little raft he sailed to the Barati on and bid Reiju a fond farewell. The chef waved him off, saying he was welcome back anytime. "So, now will you join my crew?" Reiju's eyebrow quirked up. What would make you think I'd change my mind so fast? Because now Jin isn't hungry. She thought about that for a moment before chuckling. True, but my duty is to the Barati. I am the sous chef, second only to Zeph, and thus I'll be running the place once he finally retires. Oh, is that what you think? Both looked up to see the head chef himself glaring down at Reiju from the deck above them. You're going to be waiting an awful long time, Cream Puff. Why don't you go join these pirates? It'll mean a whole lot less work for me. Reiju huffed and slammed the door as she headed back into the restaurant. Luffy was about to follow when he noticed someone looking out over the ocean with a sigh. What a blowhard he was, Moody grumbled. What kind of moron goes on a date while transporting a prisoner? Hello? The blonde looked over and lit up as soon as she realized who it was. Oh, you're the pirate Full Body was making such a fuss over. First of all, I'm sorry he was such a pain. I knew he had an ego, but yeesh. It happens. Some Marines are jerks like that. But what are you still, Drifter? I simply go wherever the sea takes me. She gestured down to the 2 purple suitcases that apparently carried everything she owned. Moody then picked up both cases, but leaned onto one foot as she stared up at Luffy. And now it's brought me here on the day you just happened to be here. I watched you break through that cannonball. You're far above any pirate I've seen. Thanks. I can also see you have quite the taste for women. Her gaze turned more mature. Tell me, which one is your girlfriend? All of them. She chuckled demurely behind her hand. I guessed that was the case. So, if you happen to like women and you have an extra room. No, Luffy then headed back inside, leaving Moody floored. She hurriedly picked up her bags and followed him back to his table. Okay, listen, I may not be a pirate myself, neither was I until a few days ago, Kaya interrupted her, but that isn't the issue. If you're staying on my ship, then you're a member of my crew. I don't accept women just because they're good looking. Seeing her chance slipping away, Moody got down on one knee and clasped her hands together. Please, I won't be just that. I can cook, I can clean, I'll make myself useful even if you never bat an eye at me. I just don't want to live like this anymore. Like what? Moody then explained that she was once the owner of a fashion boutique on some island called Galgar that had been thoroughly ransacked by pirates. She snuck off on a marine vessel and from there she lived off the kindness of strangers. The cocktail dress she had on was from her old stock. The jewelry was an early present from Full Body that she fully intended on selling for a quick berry once she left him. Nami and Karina both looked at her in pity. Both of them knew just how hard that kind of life was. Luffy's eyes did soften at her offering to help, but he wasn't sure about just picking up some random woman. Makino, however, had a compromise. Look, we're actually going to be here for a few days. There's some business we have to settle, so consider this a trial run. You help out on the ship wherever you can and prove your worth. If you like what you see and we gel with you, then you sign on. If not, then you can find some other way. Sound like a deal? That sounded like a pretty fair deal to Moody. All of the other women quickly saw that there was no real drawbacks for them, and Luffy just chuckled. Yeah, Makino is good at ideas. That's why she's the first mate. She is, I am. Good to see you aren't a stickler for hierarchy. Spend enough time with certain Marines and you'll never be able to hear their rank without rolling your eyes. And so Moody pulled up a chair and had a vastly better dining experience at the Barati since Luffy actually paid attention to her. She also bonded with most of the other girls over dessert, appreciating that she finally had some people to talk fashion with. The only exception was Kuina, who just muttered that she'd better pull her weight. Oh, don't worry, I will, the blonde thought as she ate the last bite of her chocolate torte. A pirate that's powerful, handsome, and is genuinely nice, you'd have to drag me away. Over the next few days, the Going Merry stayed moored at the floating restaurant. Reiju had to give Luffy credit. He clearly was not leaving without her. Zeph's policy was that anyone who paid were considered customers and Karina paid their tab every time, although her tipping left something to be desired. She actually found it quite flattering. She even asked Luffy once why he did not try recruiting any of the other chefs. Because you're the best, he said with a grin. You said so, right? Reiju could not hide the blush that compliment gave. As the eatery saw little business between lunch and dinner, the pink-haired beauty was now leaning against the railing and watching as the Straw Hat Pirates were hard at work training, and she could scarcely believe what she was seeing. Luffy was sparring against all 5 of his crewmates at once, holding them off with only a bit of effort. He caught Kuina's sword with his bare hands, dodged Karina's sneak attacks even as she was totally silent, shrugged off Makino's blasts, swatted aside Kaya's gem flechettes and even tanked getting zapped by lightning. Luffy even giggled at that last one, saying it made perfect sense that a rubberman would be immune to electricity. The only exception was Moody, resting her muscles after trying to make it through one of his warm-ups. Reiju gave the woman credit. A woman with no fighting experience whatsoever trying to learn now meant she was serious. And according to Luffy, she had been pulling her weight ever since she first stepped onto the ship. Assisting Makino with the cooking, cleaning up after their spars, even keeping lookout at night. The blonde was dead set on joining, and toughening herself up was a sure sign of her dedication. Once they were done training together, Luffy would start going through his own regiment while the ladies worked independently. And then came the part where Reiju had to rub her eyes and make sure she wasn't seeing things. Makino managed to pull off the same sword-catching feat as her captain. Kuina's sword managed to create blades of air that sliced through a flying barrel. Kaio was able to somehow bend over backwards to dodge a punch from Kurina. And Nami managed to somehow move so fast that she went from one side of the deck to the next in seconds. How in the world? Reiju was only further impressed as Luffy came up to each of them, patting them on the back or giving them a kiss on the cheek at their progress. He then went up to the resting Moody and started walking her through the basics personally. Yet another sight she considered impossible, a man being in full control of himself around 6 sweaty, attractive women. Once again, it was time for dinner and Luffy led them all inside. Zeph had even reserved the same 6-top table to make sure nobody would take their spot. And that proved to be a blessing as the restaurant was packed, barely an empty seat to be had. But then in walked a man with a horn in his hands, loudly bellowing over the string quartet to the surprise of the diners. Presenting their royal majesties, King Steri and Queen Seri Nantakenet of the Goa Kingdom. Everyone watched as in walked a man almost 6 feet tall, a royal blue sash over a fine white dress shirt and black pants. A golden crown was perched, his smooth brown hair cut to resemble a bowl, his thick lips stretched into a condescending grin. Right behind him was a blonde woman almost as tall as he was, with long blonde hair styled into large curls that flowed down her back and an elaborate yellow gown that draped just above the floor. She seemed far happier, glancing around the restaurant. "Welcome, your majesties," Reiju said. "Please, we have your table ready for you." The queen stepped forward to oblige, only for the king to hold his hand up and point around the dining room. "I'm sorry, there must be some mistake. I specifically made a reservation for a private dining experience." "We understand, your highness. This table has been made just now, exclusively for your use." The king let out a haughty chuckle, making Luffy and the other pirates all tense. This guy made Helmeppo look like a saint. No, this will not do. As a royal, I cannot be expected to share my eating space with a room full of plebeians such as this. Would you accept a ruffian eating here? I think not. Now dear, that isn't not necessary, Seri insisted, noticing how many customers were now glaring at them. Let's just sit down and eat. Steri spared his wife a stern glance, like she was an unruly child, before turning back to Reiju. Now then, wench, I want this establishment empty and properly prepared in the next 5 minutes. Reiju turned to face the others, but otherwise didn't move. At the Barati, we serve all kinds as long as they can pay. If you can pay, then you are a customer. And here, the customer is king. She turned around, her fa I am deeply sorry, sir, but it would be a treason to the kings already here to throw them out just because you want to. A polite round of applause came out, Luffy only being further assured that Reiju was the perfect fit for his ship. The only one unamused was Steri himself, who was trembling in indignant rage like a little boy who had his favorite toy taken away. I'd suggest you reconsider your stance, you pink strumpet, before I have your entire restaurant shut down. Do you think your little dinghy could possibly stand up to the Goa Kingdom's military? Seri muttered something under her breath before placing a gentle hand on her husband's shoulder. Honey, why don't we just leave? I think the word of mouth oversold this place. We are not leaving until this impudent little trollop learns her lesson. I am King Steri, a noble from birth, and I deserve respect from a no-name tavern whore like this. No, you don't. Luffy stood from his chair and walked over. A pair of uniformed guards pointed bayonets at him, but he swatted them aside like bugs. Steri flinched in terror at how easily his security was pushed aside before glaring up. Care to repeat that? The king challenged, expecting Luffy to back down. Instead, the pirate, who was a good half a foot taller and far more muscular, did just that. You don't deserve respect, you earn it. The nobles of Goa Kingdom are all assholes who think they're all better than everyone else. He then grabbed the monarch by the neck, much to the amazement of the diners. And you're the worst of them all. You haven't changed a bit. Unhand me, you oversized oaf. If the world government hears of this, they'll send an admiral after you. You're not a world noble, and even if you were, I'd do it anyway. You were a jerk when you were a kid, and you're even bigger jerk now. I'm sorry, Seri piped up, but are you from Don Island? I can't recall ever seeing you in the kingdom. Don't talk to the gutter trash. It's beneath your status as my wife. How many times must I GHK? Luffy's hand threatened to crush his esophagus, shuddering in anger. My brother was a noble, just like you. He hated it so much he wanted to run away. And he did right as one of those world nobles came to your kingdom, and they shot him dead for daring to cut their boat off. Seri's hands went to her mouth in shock, but Steri was too concerned trying to pry himself from Luffy's ever-tightening grasp as the pirate kept venting. You were adopted by his family because Sabo didn't want to be controlled. And you outright said he should die. Luffy, stop, Makino called, it's not worth it. Her voice snapped him back to reason, dropping the king to the floor as he gasped for breath. But Luffy did plant his foot on the king's face as he made one last thought known. My brother is better than you'll ever be. You wanna know why? Because he actually wanted to live his own life. Try it out sometime, jackass. The straw-hatted young man walked back to his seat where Kaya and Moody both looked at him in shock. Both of them gave their condolences for Sabo, but Luffy waved them off. He knew his brother wouldn't want pity parties on his part either. Once Starry was finally off the floor, he pointed right at Luffy. You mongrel, you dare assault royalty? The second I return to my palace, I'm calling the fleet admiral himself to hunt you down. I'll see you drawn and quartered, you worthless scum. Would you get out of here already? Nami yelled. You're such an ass, you're stinking up the place. Several customers assented, urging to just leave before he spoiled everyone's appetite. They might have been starstruck to see a royal at first, but nobody wanted to put up with his attitude. Plus, it was true that Starry little actual authority outside of his kingdom, unlike the celestial dragons. Starry turned around and left, but soon noticed something was missing. Sari, the queen, stood perfectly still, anchored to the same spot she was on since this whole episode began. You never told me you were adopted, she said, her voice cold. And who is this Sabo? That's not important. Now, we must go in. If you were adopted into his family, that would make Sabo your sibling and thus my in-law. I find this very important. He was just some urchin. Good riddance to bad rubbish, they say. Now, woman, we must. A piercing slap stopped him. It took him and everyone else a moment to realize it was Sari who just smacked him across the face. Rubbish. Rubbish? You narcissistic maniac. That was a child. A child who died a senseless death, and you wish that fate upon him? You just keep sinking to new lows. Sari, as your husband, you aren't my husband. You're the man whose parents shoved the largest dowry in front of my social climbing leeches of a mother and father, who signed off on the license without my consent. We may be legally conjoined, but I have never thought of you as anything more than a miserable little pile of slag with a hideous haircut. She then marched over to Luffy, making the pirate flinch as she knelt before him. I am truly sorry to hear about the loss of your brother. I suspect this was around the burning of Grey Terminal? Yeah, it was right around then. I remember hearing about that disgusting ploy. I urged my parents to vouch against it. Alas, I seem to be one of the few in Goa who doesn't want to live in a gilded cage. Sari, stop debasing yourself this instant, Starry cried. You are bringing shame, Adar. I bring shame? You're the one who throws tantrums if your shoes aren't polished correctly. You insist on being treated as if you ruled the entire world instead of one island. Don't you dare preach etiquette to me. You ingrate. I can only imagine how much good you'd actually do as a leader and a human being if you applied 1/100th of the effort to economic reform that you did to ordering your breakfast. The monarch was floored that his wife of all people was calling him out. He moved forward to give her a piece of his mind, only for Reiju to clamp down on his shoulder. I am deeply sorry our restaurant didn't meet your standards, your majesty, she apologized with a sickly sweet smile. The king shivering as she almost broke the bones under her fingers. Please, allow me to escort you back to your ship so you may find a more suitable establishment. Reiju then hauled him up with one hand and, judging from the sound of breaking wood and bones, slammed him into the deck of whatever overpriced yacht he rode here. The herald and guards scurried out in short order, leaving only the queen. Sari, however, slipped a ring off of one of her hands before walking up to Reiju. I'd like to humbly apologize for his behavior. If you'll still have me, I would very much like to see if the Barati's food lives up to its reputation. Reiju, of course, had no problem and escorted her to the same reserved table. Once there, however, Sari requested that her place be moved to Luffy's table. The girls all scooted over to give the newly emancipated queen some space, and the blonde gently held out her hand. Greetings, young captain. I am Sari Nantuckanet, soon to be disowned queen of the Goa kingdom. If you'll allow it, please consider adding me to your pirate crew. Whoa, wait, just like that? Kuina asked, don't you live in some huge palace? Yes, and it was dreadfully stifling. As the right to govern Goa is passed from father to son, Starry held all of the authority. I was to tend to ceremonial affairs, as a proper lady of the royal court. Damn, that sounds boring as hell, Karina sighed, but, do you happen to have any money on you? Sadly, no, he was in charge of all finances as well. Insult to injury, right there. Hold on, Luffy spoke. I get that guy was a total ass, but I don't need people just laying around the ship. What can you do? Any task you assign of me, I'll put my best into learning. As long as it isn't piano recitals, tea ceremonies or riding side saddle, I'll happily Apu be in the same boat as me then. Moody chuckled at her own pun. Be warned, this man might be dashing, but his training is no joke. I'd actually like something to challenge me. To see new locales, having brushes with death, it all sounds so much more exhilarating. Oh, trust me, you'll get your fill of that, Nami said, slipping the ring she discarded into her pocket to sell later, but once you do, there's no going back. Sari tittered. Exactly how I'd imagine it. Consider me an assistant of sorts, until we can get something more formal arranged. As long as you want to help, I'm happy to have you, Luffy cheered. Hey, Reiju. Let's have an extra big dinner this time. We have a new crewmate to celebrate. I'll be sure to warn the cooks. The pink cat chuckled as she headed upstairs. They deserved at least a little notice to deal with that appetite. Even still, she could scarcely believe it. A pirate picking up 2 new crewmates while still trying to recruit her, and one of them from royalty. It made her wonder, was every day like this with them? And those insane stunts she saw during their training, could she possibly ever learn them? It would certainly help considering her family. A slight chill went down her spine, but she brushed it off. They would never look for her here. For now, she was sous chef of the Barati and she had a table of favorite customers to handle. Chapter 9. Outnumbered but not outmatched, Straw Hat Crew vs Krieg Armada. 5 days now the Straw Hat Pirates had been at the Barati, officially making them the restaurant's most frequent customers. Reiju had to admit she was wondering if their tenacity was admirable or annoying at this point. But they had proven as respectful as they were diligent, so there wasn't much she can do. Plus, Karina had actually learned what a tip was supposed to be. It also gave her a chance to see that Sari had completely ditched her elaborate gown in favor of some spare clothes from the other girls. A plain black t-shirt and gray khakis that went down to her knees. She also apparently had the heels to her pumps slashed off, leaving high-quality golden footwear that actually let her walk faster than a gentle clip. Reiju continued to watch their training and watched as the queen along with Moody both walked through basic punches and kicks as the other girls continued to work on these otherworldly techniques and devil fruit powers. She had seen a few users in the restaurant before but never so many on one crew. Hey, maybe he grows them himself, she thought with a chuckle before heading inside. Several tables were due to arrive shortly and the Straw Hats would need lunch not long after. From there, the day progressed with the pink cat going from table to table. There was the occasional drunkard who couldn't hold their liquor and tightwad who insisted on negotiating the menu prices but nothing to get worried over. Luffy and his crew were a joy as always, giving their food glowing reviews and happily chatting like a band of friends instead of a pirate crew. But as the afternoon passed, one of the diners spotted something approaching the Barati that made him scream in terror. Others soon followed and people began heading for the door in a panic. The only exception were the Straw Hats, standing around the front door as they spotted the cause for alarm. The single largest galleon any of them had ever seen. A monolith of wood and canvas was rapidly approaching. Each side was over 10 stories tall and easily dwarfed not only the Going Merry but the restaurant itself. But once they looked past its scale, everyone noticed something even more striking. The ship was a floating wreck. Large gouges in the wood, the sails were tattered scraps and the vessel moaned like a dying man as it slowed to a stop. Goodness, it must have been caught in a storm, Sari noted. I wonder where it's from? I can guess, Kuina said, pointing at the faraway mast. That's one Jolly Roger the First know anywhere. The black flag showed the typical skull and crossbones but with hourglasses sitting on either side of the face. It's the Krieg Pirates. Wait, those Krieg Pirates? Moody yelped, but I thought Reiju helped that guy earlier. I did, the sous chef nodded, but I'm guessing that isn't just Jin on board. The party headed back inside to wait for the inevitable arrival. The entire kitchen staff, some 30 chefs all wielding giant forks and knives, were standing at attention. Among them was Patty, insisting that there's no way Jin could possibly be angry enough to come back just to attack him, right? The only one calm was Chef Zeph, his arms crossed as he glared at the doors. The assembly didn't have to wait long as Jin had eyed it returned but with a +1. Please, help me, said the towering man resting on Jin's shoulder. I need food. Wait, that's Don Krieg? One of the chefs wondered. While he was well built and well over 8 feet tall, the newcomer could barely stand. His clothes weren't impressive either, with a massive leopard print shirt and plain brown pants. His gray hair was cut short with mutton chops on either side of his square face, his mouth hanging open in exhaustion. The pirate collapsed to the floor, moaning in grief as Jin rushed to help him up. Don Krieg, please, you can't die like this. The man-demon from earlier was gone. Now Jin was the image of humility as he rested on his hands and knees. Please, feed my captain, he's maybe hours away from starving. All of the cooks remained in place, nobody looking even the tiniest bit sorry. Even as Krieg swore that he would accept anything, even scraps from the bin, not a one was moved. Ha, like we're going to help him, Patty taunted. Quick, somebody get the transponder snail. We've got Don Krieg ready to capture. Please, I swear, no trouble, the Don promised. His head touching the floor. I'll turn right around, I'd be so grateful. Captain, don't reduce yourself to this. Right as Patty was about to goad some more, he was violently pushed out of the way. Reiju held a tray of steaming rice filled with shrimp and calamari alongside a bottle of sparkling water. Jin gasped in wonder as the sous chef presented the spread in front of Krieg. Please, eat. The Don didn't waste another second. Reiju simply stood and watched, even as many of the cooks ordered her to take that away before Krieg got his strength back. Luffy noticed that the only exception was Zeph, still idly observing this all happen right in his own restaurant. With one final loud gulp, Krieg finished the last bite. He quickly rose to his feet and slammed a punch directly into Reiju's face. forcing the pink head on her butt as he cracked his knuckles. He threw the oversized shirt off to reveal a golden suit of armor that covered his torso. "Don, what are you doing?" Jin cried. "She just saved your life." "That was a truly well done meal," Krieg chuckled. "I feel like my old self again." "See? What did I tell you?" One of the chefs yelled at Reiju. "This is a scumbag who hijacks marine ships to attack ports and raises the white flag before opening fire." "Man, this guy is a new level of asshole," Kuina muttered as she helped Reiju up. "What did you just say, Cupcake? Speak up, I didn't hear you." The swordswoman ignored him completely, escorting the sous chef back. Krieg ground his teeth at the blatant disrespect and raised a diamond-covered gauntlet to attack her. Jin, however, jumped in front of him. "Captain, please. You promised to leave, these people helped us." The chief of staff got a gem-crusted fist to the face for his trouble, making the rest of the Barati wince. Nami and Kaya both wanted to help Jin up, but they noticed something else. Luffy's eyes were hidden behind his hat as Krieg spoke again. "Now then, if there aren't any more interruptions, here's what will happen next. First, there are 100 men on my ship on the brink of starving. You cooks will prepare them meals just as you did for me." The cooks all grumbled that they would all soon tie anchors to their feet and take a dip in the ocean, then do that, making a vein pop out on the Don's forehead. "Second of all, you can all plainly see my ship is in no condition to sail. I'll be needing a replacement immediately, this restaurant." "What? That doesn't make any sense," Sari thought aloud. "What could a pirate need a ship like this for?" "Actually, it makes plenty of sense," Moody answered. "Think about it. Would you ever suspect a pirate attack from a vessel like this?" "Hey," Krieg yelled, "enough with the color commentary. You women speak when spoken to, got that?" "Oh great, he's a sexist pig on top of everything else." Nami rolled her eyes, and here I thought he might have some redeeming qualities. "Why you little," Krieg suddenly pulled out a double-barreled pistol and pointed it right at Nami. "Who the fuck are you to talk to me like that? Point that at me." Luffy stepped forward. "Who are you supposed to be, the chore boy?" "I'm Monkey D. Luffy, and that was my friend you just threatened." Krieg belted out a laugh, though his weapon was indeed leveled at the young man. "Oh, is that right? Well, pardon me. I'm sorry I interrupted your tea party with your little book club here. You're a total. Get out right now before I kick your ass." Krieg's cocky smile turned to a snarl as he pulled the trigger. The bang made many cooks cover their IED at the murder they just watched, until the smoke cleared and showed Luffy standing perfectly still, his hands outstretched in front of him, untouched from the shot. "What?" they all gasped. "The fuck? Reiju odd, how are you still alive?" "I'm a rubber man," Luffy told her. "Bullets don't work on me." His cheerful smile turned to a grimace as he faced Don Krieg, blatantly trying to mask his surprise. "So, you think one fluke makes you better than me? You've got some nerve, kid." "It's not a fluke," Makino warned. "Luffy is 10 times the pirate you'll ever be. And he doesn't need cheap tricks to win fights." "Oh, you think so?" Several slots opened on Krieg's golden armor, revealing 10 different gun barrels before he held up a second double-barreled mega pistol to match the first. "Dodge these, punk." A hail of gunfire filled the restaurant, for all of 5 seconds before Krieg got a haki-infused punch to the face that sent him flying out of the restaurant. "What the? No way, that kid. How the hell did you do that?" Jin cried. "You should be full of holes right now. I told the idiot that bullets don't work on me. He didn't listen." Luffy then offered Jin a hand up off the floor, and anyone who treats their crew that way pisses me off. "I'm so sorry, I can't believe he would do something like this," Jin cried. "And he wants to back to the Grand Line?" "So that's what happened to your ship," Nami gasped. "What kind of storm did that?" "A storm is the only thing that saved us. It was that man, and those golden eyes. He took down the entire fleet by himself." The whole restaurant fell silent. Kaya and Moody both gaped at the thought of a single person being able to wipe out 49 ships full of pirates all on his own. Kuina, however, took another look at the demolished galleon and gaped. There was no way. Reiju then turned around to head to the kitchen, attracting Karina's attention. "And where are you going?" "To prepare the meals for those starving pirates." "What?" All of the chefs actually pulled flintlocks out of their aprons and pointed them at the pinkhead. "Alright, that tears it. This whole mess is your fault, princess. Yeah, if you just let Jin starve, none of this would have happened. And if I did, I couldn't live with myself." Reiju stomped the ground hard enough to crack the tiles. "You little shit," Krieg yelled, ripping the doors off the hinges as he stormed back inside. "I'm gonna tear you apart. Who the fuck do you think you are? I'm going to be king of the pirates." Krieg burst into laughter, barely holding himself upright. "You? King of the pirates? With what? A bunch of girls for a crew? Are you running a pirate ship or a floating brothel?" "Okay, that's it," Moody said with her arms crossed. "I say we kick his ass, no matter how many guys he has." But before that, Chef Zeph plopped a gigantic burlap sack on the floor, almost as big as the man himself. "Here's your meals. Go feed your crewmen." Rather than take the bag, Krieg gaped at the one-legged man in front of him. "Redfoot Zeph, you're alive." "TCH, nobody has called me that in ages." I'm the head cook of this establishment now, and nothing else. That's a pirate epithet, Kuina chuckled, pretty impressive, considering the world government doesn't believe in forgive and forget. No way. Luffy gaped. You were a pirate? A long while ago, yes. It's all in the past now. More like you're a has-been. Krieg pointed down at the chef's peg leg. To think you were once known for wading through the blood of your enemies and kicking through solid steel. Now look at you. Reiju's nostrils flared in anger. Several of the other cooks could at least agree with her on that, growling at the pirate's blatant insult before he went back to barking demands. But, at the very least, there's something from your time as a pirate that will be of use to me. You must have kept a logbook of your journey through the Grand Line. That's right, but you're not getting it. The Don sneered at that. I'm sorry? You heard me. That book contains all the memories of me and my crew. It's irreplaceable. You'd have to pry it from my dead hands. Don't tempt me, old man. I am Don Krieg, ruler of the East Blue. Once I have this ship and that logbook, I will conquer the Grand Line. AHAHAHAHAHAHAHA. The other Barati chefs watched in horror as Luffy doubled over laughing, Krieg trembling in anger. What's so funny, huh? You're a total idiot, that's what, you dare insult me? Yeah, he should. Makino stepped up, because frankly, it's quite obvious you're the biggest fish in a tiny pond. What? It's true, Nami added. The pirate armada is famous for being the biggest gang of swashbucklers in the sea, but that doesn't mean squat on the Grand Line. That's where quality matters, not quantity. Just having a cheat sheet about the Grand Line won't be of much help, Kaya continued. If your fleet getting wiped out by one person is any indication, you need to actually get stronger and improve yourself. All you're doing is looking for shortcuts. You bunch of useless bitches. I'll show all of you. Maybe I ought to take some of you on board my crew and show you a real pirate. Karina's face turned green. Oh god, somebody get me some bleach. Sari fanned her face, pretending like she would faint. You disgusting scoundrel. You must not, should not, cannot be serious. I wouldn't join your fleet for all the jewels in the world. Luffy, while amused at his crew's reactions, sent a glare that actually made Jin and Krieg flinch as he ordered, "Get out. I'm gonna be king of the pirates, not a pathetic bully like you." The pirate admiral simply picked up the sack of prepared meals and stomped back to his ship, swearing that he would mount Luffy's head to the wall of the Barati once he was done with him. You got some bravado there, lad. Zeph tipped his hat to Luffy. It might not mean much, but I'd sooner bet on you making it to the end of the Grand Line than that braggart. Thanks, and don't worry, that jerk isn't taking this place if I can help it. You're completely serious? Reiju asked. This place has nothing to do with you. You could just get on your ship and leave. We could, but we won't, Nami told her. There are too many asshats like Krieg who think they can push everyone around and laugh it off because they're the strongest. Makino nodded. Those people need to learn that there's always someone out there who can put them in their place. That you can't just take someone's home on a whim, Moody said with a tremor in her voice, that other people's lives aren't just playthings. And that showing mercy and kindness isn't a weakness, but a talent, Kaya finished, placing a hand on Reiju's shoulder as the pinkette gaped. You've been nothing but a great server and chef to us the whole time we've been here. You even helped Jin and Krieg because you care about feeding the hungry. That's something great, Reiju. That shows how strong you are. Kuina shrugged. Granted, beating a lieutenant like he was nothing helps. You might have too much pink for me, but you're alright in my book. The sous chef just stood, floored that these people she hadn't even known for a week were so willing to protect her home. After a long while, she looked at Luffy. If Krieg had all his men, would you still fight them? Yep. If he had an army of Marines backing him, would you still fight? Totally. If you were facing down an entire country, would you still stand up to him? Of course. I don't care if I had to take on the whole world. Reiju couldn't sense an ounce of hesitation, almost flooring like the pirate admiral just did. She couldn't believe it. Someone with so much resolve. Flashes of red, blue, black and green flickered before Luffy's words echoed in her mind. He'd even stand up to him, Reiju. She snapped to attention, seeing Zeph look at her. I didn't take you in so you'd be cooped up here forever. These kids here age. Go with them, while you still can. Chef, why are you acting like this? Patty yelled. This whole mess is Reiju's fault. Yeah, if she just let Krieg's henchmen go hungry, then none of this would have happened. Shut your damn mouth. The whole staff grew silent as Zeph ranted. None of you ingrates know what it's like to go hungry. The only one who does is this girl. The pinkette's eyes hid behind her hair. When I found her, she was nothing but sticks and bones. And as for me, I ate my damned leg because I was stranded on a pillar of rock in the middle of the ocean. When you feel your body shut down, your organs trying to quit on you, then you'll know what it's like. As colorful as the story Zeph told was, many eyes were on Reiju. The Straw Hats were wondering if she was actually the chef's daughter, but apparently not. If he found her, then where did she come from? But that was a story for later. A hurrah rang out from outside, followed by a gunshot. Sounds like they're done eating, Makino murmured. And I am guessing that Krieg shot the one brave soul who pointed out how moronic his plan is, Sari thought, So, how do we do this? You and Moody stay back, Luffy ordered. This is gonna get serious. Everyone else, we form a line and don't let them cross. Reiju then walked up. I imagine you'll be making room for me, Captain? Luffy's eyes lit up like fireworks before he let out a laugh. Alright, we've gotta cook. Only after we defeat those blowhards. I will, however, be more than happy to prepare a feast for my new crew. Everyone else, stay back, Zeph told the cooks. This is officially a battle between pirate crews. Anyone who gets involved is liable to get torn apart, speaking from experience. He then pointed to one chap in white and ordered him to deploy the fins, and soon the entire restaurant shook as 2 large wooden decks over 20 feet long were raised from the underside of the floating eatery. Nice thinking, Nami nodded, having a huge deck to have fights on, better than having more broken furniture. Chef Zeph intended to die with this place, Reiju said, but that's supposed to be from whenever his crusty heart gives out, not from these jokes. Don't worry about it, Luffy assured her, we're gonna take these guys down. I sure hope so, Kaya and Karina both said under their breath as a small army of buccaneers all brandishing cutlasses and flintlocks leapt down from the derelict galleon and onto the extended deck. The Straw Hat Pirates rushed ahead as one, yelling as they crashed headlong into a full-fledged battle with one of the most notorious crews in the East Blue. Luffy quickly sent several blokes flying without haki or his rubberman powers, the poor sods crashing into the water like cinder blocks. Makino stood firm as 3 rogues rushed at her, extending both her hands out. Patterson push, an explosive boom rattled the deck as she let out her biggest burst yet, 100 tiny pellets stopping the trio in their tracks. Makino was flung backwards, but now she moved with the impact, extending her foot out to catch herself against the restaurant's outer wall and launching herself back to knock the shotgun pirates out with a clothesline. What the? Several of the Krieg pirates cried, a devil fruit. She's not the only one, everyone turned to see Nami, her hands clasped together like she was praying. The coy grin on her face gave her away though as she opened her palms to reveal a dozen tiny clouds the size of marble that flew through the air, floating lazily by and making them chuckle. What were clouds supposed to scare them? Nimbus sprang. With a snap of her fingers, the teeny tiny puffs exploded in size to being several feet around. Several pirates were surprised, but they felt like marshmallows were pushing against them. Then they saw Nami running at them, her bowstaff drawn and leaping onto the nearest white pad. Her feet sank into its fluffy surface before launching her several feet into the air. No way, her too. I just said that, idiot. Nami's staff crashed into the nearest pirate's head, laying him flat. In a show of her training, the redhead recovered immediately and rolled upon landing. She bolted up to her feet fast enough to stop a cutlass going for her eyes, observation haki letting her know that 2 more were aiming guns at the back of her head. With a sweep of her hand, one of her clouds swept in and acted as cover to stop their shots while she disarmed the swordsman and laid him flat with a smack across the face. Several pirates tried to surround the navigator, but they soon found themselves ducking for cover as razor-sharp, sparkling arrowheads flew past their faces. One unlucky goon got a gem straight to the eye, sending him to the deck in a screaming, bloody mess. Standing on the upper deck of the restaurant, Kaya might have felt the urge to vomit, but she held firm. She was a pirate now, she couldn't let herself falter. She used the gem fruit again, creating more flechettes to act as cover fire. In the center of the chaos were Kuina and Reiju, the 2 standing back to back against 20 of Krieg's men. Show me what you've got, Pinky, TCH, if you insist, brute. Kuina moved in a blur, stopping any blade long before it could get close and slashing them down. As for Reiju, she stopped a punch with barely a glance and crushed the bones in her grip. The burly attacker shrieked in panic and was quickly tossed aside like garbage, letting her move on to the others. She moved with the grace of a dancer, never losing stride as she sent crippling kicks to their knees or broke jaws with a single punch. Damn, she's strong, Luffy awed before turning to see Krieg, still standing on his ship. Even from where he was standing on the deck, the rubber brain could see the other captain grinding his teeth in rage. He then giggled as he watched Karina, using the volume fruit to go silent and pickpocketing the Krieg pirates on the outskirts of the combat. Not only did she pilfer their wallets, but she grabbed any loose weapons and threw them in the ocean behind her. You morons, Krieg shouted, one of them is literally robbing you blind. Huh? One of them looked down just as the brunette threw away his dagger, you cunt. Oi, language. She leapt up as 4 guns were trained on her, but thankfully a cloud appeared around her to stop the shots. She plopped on another puffy white pad, giving the redhead ample opportunity to check on her friend. The fuck are these freaks? Don Krieg, what do we do? All of these guys have devil fruit powers. Quiet, the Don ordered, they must have a weakness, and that old man's logbook must have it. Man, you really are an idiot. All you do is make excuses for why you can't win. Krieg snarled as Luffy glared back at him. Oh, you think so? Why don't you get up here and say that to my face? Okay. Luffy leapt straight off the Barati and onto the half-sunk ship with no effort, the boat rocking as he crashed down. The Don held firm before revealing his diamond-studded gauntlets. You think you're so damn special, huh? Because you ate some special fruit that you're better than everyone? No, I don't. Don't you bullshit me. Krieg charged ahead like a bull to pound Luffy's face in. His fist crashed into Luffy's palm, stopping it in an instant. The Don tried his other hand, but Luffy simply swerved to the side, grabbing the armored ass by the wrist and flinging him across the deck like a frisbee. Hey, Nami, Karina. Presents for you. Luffy tossed the gem-encrusted gloves to them. Both girls briefly forgot all about the fight, squealing in delight at having a few million berry worth of precious stones just handed to them. Thanks, Captain. Both of them cheered, probably backslapping a pair of Krieg pirates that tried to get the drop on them. No way, those girls didn't even look at them, one of the Barati chefs muttered, one of many who stayed behind Chef Zeph and agreed that this fight was way above their level. Reiju was similarly impressed how they were so aware. Stoop. The entire fight crashed to a halt as they turned to see Jin standing over Chef Zeph, a double-barreled gun pointed at the cook's head. Ah shit, we forgot all about him, Kuina swore, too busy on the other side of the deck. Jin, put that down, Reiju begged. I'm sorry it's come to this. Just leave the ship now and the old man will be fine. Don Krieg laughed from his ship. Well done, Jin, I told you all not to cross us. Makino, though standing still, raised her hands. Jin, listen to me. You don't have to do this. You know just having this ship won't help you on the Grand Line. It's not about what I think, it's my captain's orders, you understand, I'm sure. Except we don't follow Luffy blindly, Nami insisted. He isn't some meathead who wants us to do everything he says. That's not a good captain. Save your breath. Either you all leave this restaurant or the old man gets a bullet between the eyes. Or, if I may posit a third option. A pistol touched Jin's left temple, making the pirate blanch. Sari just gave a calm smile as she held the weapon to his head. You relinquish your weapon, or else I'll be forced to kill you. Wait a minute, I've seen your face on the newspapers, aren't you some queen? The fuck are you doing here? I am the newest member of the Straw Hat Pirates, and I must say, swashbuckling is so much more fulfilling than sitting in a gilded cage. TCH, yeah right. You don't have the guts. A second gun touched his right temple. A much less friendly Moody holding it steady. Perhaps she can't, but I can and will. Drop your gun or someone will have to mop your brain off the floor. What the? Where did you come from? I joined not long before Sari here did, but that's not important. What is important is that these guns we borrowed from the Barati cooks are loaded at all times, and I've got a bad history with pirates destroying people's homes for kicks. Jin swiveled his eyes, noticing that both blondes weren't budging. His hand began shaking, realizing he had no other option. He barely noticed the sound of someone running towards him and only focused just long enough to register Reiju's foot inches away from his face. The Pinkette's kick sent Jin hurling into the back of the restaurant, the rest of the cooks scrambling out of the way as the chief of staff's weapon clattered to the floor. Jin slowly looked up, his lips leaking blood and several teeth lying around the floor. I'm sorry it's come to this too, Reiju apologized. You may be following orders, but your captain is going to lead you to an early grave at this rate. Don't remind me. Jin stared at the floor in shame, both at himself for his failure and for letting this whole debacle happen. With Zeph safe, the battle between Straw Hats and Krieg pirates resumed, although it quickly became one-sided. Despite outnumbering the smaller crew 10-1, quality was easily defeating quantity as each of Luffy's ladies was easily a match for the pirate admiral's generic goons. And as this all happened, Krieg could feel the blood vessels in his head threaten to pop. This whole operation had been a shitshow from the start. He couldn't believe it. He was Don Krieg. If he still had his full fleet, these newbies would be 6 feet under the waves already. Then he turned to Luffy, the other pirate's arms crossed as he waited for their fight to continue. Alright, so you think you're so tough? I don't need my diamond fists for you? He pulled off one of the round, armored plates from his shoulders. Krieg grabbed onto the brassy disc and Luffy watched as the rim along the pirate's emblem revealed several barrels. Chew on this, rubber boy. Dozens of spikes fired out from the shield, dripping some kind of purple liquid as they aimed for Luffy. But thanks to a little observation haki, the Straw Hatted knew what to do. Gum gum gatling. Luffy's fists bounced back and forth, easily bursting through the rain of spikes much to Krieg's horror. One of Luffy's fists bashed straight into the launcher, denting the golden plate as the admiral's fingers slipped off the trigger. All the better for Luffy to pummel him under an avalanche of punches. Krieg's face and legs were getting bruised and bent, and even his famous wood steel armor was being riddled with dents. Many of the Krieg pirates down below could barely believe what they were hearing. Don Krieg was losing. A few of them, however, noticed something bobbing through the water up to the deck and felt a tiny flicker of hope again. The Straw Hat ladies paused as a towering man covered in rounded steel plates decorated with humongous cyan pearls hoisted himself onto the Barati with a cocky grin on his face. Goodness, this is becoming quite the farce, he boasted, to think a gaggle of girls could defeat even Jin. Oh great, Makino rolled her eyes, who's this clown? Iron Wall, Pearl, Kuina recognized, one of Krieg's commanders, wanted for 9 million Barris. Supposed to have never even been injured in a fight. Oh ho ho, well done for being so well informed, Pearl preened. Indeed, thanks to this invulnerable plates of mine, I haven't even suffered a scratch in my career. Wow, those do look impressive. Nami awed, walking up and even knocking against the taller pirate's front piece of armor. These must be some high-quality iron. You're quite right, custom forged, second only to Don Krieg's wood steel armor. A marine battleship could ram into it at full speed and I wouldn't suffer so much as a stomach cramp. You don't say, but I do think there's one thing you might have forgotten. Nami closed her eyes, forcing all of the clouds she had still scattered around the deck to fly into her hand. 2 white puffy balls fit for bowling rested on her palms before she closed her fists together, crunching the clouds down into gray spheres the size of her eyes. Iron is a great conductor. The redhead thrust her hands forward, letting loose the clouds which flew right at Pearl and discharged tens of thousands of volts of white-hot lightning. The dandy man screamed in terror as the electricity easily bypassed his shields and struck right through him, his arms and legs flailing about as the rest of the crew watched in despair. Once the lightning strike faded, Pearl was left a charred, smoking lump swaying on his feet. Danger. Kaya quickly conjured a bigger gem than usual, this one a flat prism as wide as a ruler, and sent it flying right at Pearl's stunned face. And Krieg commander moaned in agony as he toppled backwards into the ocean, quickly sinking beneath the waves. Nice job, you two, Reiju complimented, your powers really are something else. All in a day's work. As the Barati chefs cheered at seeing the feared captain's other heavy hitter fall, Krieg was now frozen in fear. Jin was barely conscious. Pearl was probably a minute away from drowning. And Luffy had that same glare in his eyes. All of his plans were in ruins and it was all this kid's fault. That's it, everyone dies, he roared, eyes bloodshot and frothing at the mouth. He slung off his other shoulder plate, a single larger cannon barrel emerging from the mouth of the skull flanked with hourglasses on its front. I can't believe I'm resorting to this, but I am not leaving without that ship. Prepare for the MH5. Huh? Not the MH5, Krieg's men pleaded, before shuffling around their jackets and pockets. What is he talking about? Moody asked one of the cooks. That maniac. Reiju snarled, he's going to fire poison gas at us all. WHAAAT? That's right, you cunts, Krieg crowed. One whiff of this stuff and you'll melt from the inside out. He pointed the massive gun straight at Luffy, ignoring the young man's withering glare. It doesn't matter what powers you have, you still need to breathe. So, what'll it be, brat? Are you gonna be a hero and take the blast yourself? Or are you gonna do the smart thing and stand down before I take your whole crew to Davy Jones? Your crew is down there. What about give a flying fuck about those losers? I'll start over. Rebuild the pirate armada with even stronger men. Then I'll have the ship, the knowledge of the logbook and a worthy crew to take the One Piece. Shut up. Luffy's face had gone red in anger. You're so full of bullshit. The only thing you're good at is hiding behind your weapons and making excuses. You better shut that mouth of yours right now before I fill it full of toxic gas. You keep blaming everyone else for your mistakes. You need a different ship, a stupid book, more men, more weapons. But you know what? A crew is only as good as its weakest member, and that you, Krieg. What? I'm the most wanted man in the East Blue. I can punch a battleship apart. How the hell am I weak? It's not all about power, it's about teamwork and friendship. A real pirate needs a crew and trusts them to do their job. You're just a total asshole who thinks he can do it all himself. Well, guess what? Luffy materialized inches away from Krieg with shave, grabbing the poison gas launched and crushing the metal under his fingers. WHAAAT? I'm sick of your dumb weapons. Fight me like a real man. Luffy tossed the scrap metal aside and sent it overboard, leaving Krieg with only his torso and arms covered. You little, stop talking and fight. Luffy sent an uppercut that knocked Krieg right off his feet, slamming down and actually breaking through the deck of his dilapidated ship. Luffy hopped through the hole after him, ending up in a massive room full of torn hammocks and discarded chests full of clothes and other possessions. Krieg finally tried fighting him up front, charging like a bull with his fisticuffs drawn. Luffy briefly noted he put on new spiked gauntlets at some point and frowned. He really never learned, did he? Gum pistol. The elastic fist shattered the sharpened ends of the armor before smacking Krieg through the wall of the quarters and leaving them in the cannon deck. Now the admiral had actually picked up one of the cannons to use as a melee weapon. Luffy rolled his eyes, this was getting sadder by the minute. Tempest kick. Luffy's leg released a shockwave that shook the ship and once again sent Krieg flying through the wall. This time, though, he was forced through the hull and ended up rolling to a stop on the deck of the Barati. Luffy leapt after him, giving him plenty of time to see Krieg's crew staring in astonished horror and his own ladies watching in satisfaction. You bastard, I won't give in, I always win, every time. Just shut up already, Kuina snapped, you've been saying the same crap since you showed up. This is the best in the East Blue? Sari asked. I've heard many a time this was the weakest of the seas, but I never imagined it was this bad. Mouthy little bitch, I'll show you, I'll show all of you. Krieg snapped to his feet and rammed a punch at the nearest target. Moody. The blonde shrieked in alarm before his hand closed around her throat and the sides of his armor revealed the same guns he fired on the Barati cooks earlier. No, put her down, Luffy cried. Too late, punk. You might be bulletproof, but she isn't. Now either get off this ship or I'll fill her full of holes. You bastard, that's despicable, Nami yelled, she's barely a fighter. And I don't care. This is what a real pirate does. Any step you take to win, you take it and you run your enemies into the ground. And now you're gonna learn what happens when you disrespect the best, you little. Before he could continue boasting, a punch to the face sent him stumbling enough to drop Moody. The blonde hurriedly picked up the gun she dropped and pointed it up at Krieg's face only to notice a purple spot on his cheek. That's enough, Reiju ordered, rubbing her fist, you're leaving and that's final. The Don was about to scream at her only for his vision to double. His face began turning green as the world began to sway from side to side. Huh? Don Krieg? What's wrong? One of his men asked before the ruthless pirate collapsed onto his knees, chugging the food he ate when he first arrived. His men all gasped in shock at this, the Straw Hats and Barati cooks all glancing at the pinkhead who was hiding her eyes behind her hair. He's poisoned, Kaya realized. How did you do that? A devil fruit? No, it's something else. Reiju admitted in shame. I'll tell you when the time is right, Captain, I promise. Luffy just nodded, sensing another sensitive topic like with Nami and Arlong. He then glanced down to see that Krieg was still struggling to get up even as his limbs shook and sweat poured down his bluing face. I never lose, I'm the Don Krieg. Luffy covered his hands in armament haki before landing 2 knife strikes to Krieg's back. The Don gulped in terror as he felt the digits easily pierce his infamous armor. The younger pirate then easily ripped the golden plate like it was cloth. You're nothing but a coward and a loser, now give up. But even then the Don didn't learn his lesson. A final rush of anger, delirium and a primal instinct to kill overtook him. He lurched up like a zombie, his eyes pure white as he readied one final punch. Deeeeee. Luffy jumped over him easily, standing right in front of his newly exposed back, finger gun. His finger sank cleanly into Krieg's spine, freezing the Admiral in an instant. His mouth was stuck in a half-scream, his limbs curling in silent agony now from the poison and his nerves being shot. The feared Don of the East Blue then collapsed onto the deck, only the tiniest whimper signifying he was still alive. Now, get out. The Krieg pirates, now thoroughly beaten, all scrambled back onto their derelict ship in horror. They didn't care about all of the new holes or the damaged hull, they just needed to get the hell away before the toxic girl and this monster in the hat killed all of them like they almost did with the Don Krieg. The only exception was Jin, an ice pack over his aching mouth as he got, holy shit. I warned him, Luffy shrugged, guy was a moron. The pirate then walked up to Moody, gently plucking the gun from her shaking grasp. You still want to join my crew? Moody snapped back to reality. She had just survived being held hostage by one of the most wanted men in the sea. She held another man at gunpoint to save an old chef's life. These were the craziest days of her life, bar none, and now she had an out to find some other place to live. One look into his eyes, and she could tell that he would protect and train through it all. Of course, Captain. He, yes, nice job, son, Zeph nodded. You got 100 times the chance on the Grand Line than that clown. Here, take this with you. Luffy noticed a musty old logbook bound in brown leather. No thanks, I want to make my own path. Well said, now then, I assume you'll be on your way. Nope. Huh? Well, we gotta celebrate. We have new crewmates, let's have a party. The Barati cooks all laughed, but filed in nonetheless to prepare a banquet for their heroes. Sari and Moody sidled up to Reiju. So, I guess we're all on this crazy ride together, Indeed, so much excitement, I would never imagine it all before. The new chef of the Straw Hat Pirates chuckled. True, she might have some explaining to do down the line, but Luffy was happy to have her anyway. She headed back into the Barati to cook there one last time. But, as they wandered inside, none of them noticed a tiny skiff shaped like a coffin gliding along the waves. Thin candles topped with eerie green flames flanked the legs of the boat's only passenger. His piercing golden eyes checked the retreating dreadnought Saber for a moment before looking away. Quite the spectacle I seem to have missed. Oh well, I could use a meal anyway. Chapter 10. Staring down a warlord. The resolve of the Straw Hat Pirates. Luffy and his crew of 8, plus a disbelieving Yosaku and Johnny, sat around the largest table the Barati had, already chatting and unwinding after chasing off the Krieg pirates. Their morale was at an all-time high. The top of the local food chain was nothing to them. As Reiju walked back into the kitchen, the doors to the restaurant opened and everyone froze in shock. The dapper red long coat and matching plumed hat, the black hair neatly trimmed into a beard and goatee, the massive cross-shaped sword that ran down the length of his back. and those infamous eyes gazing into the soul of anyone in range. D. Dracul Mihawk. Sari gaped. What in the world is he doing here? No way. Makino blanched. Hawkeye, one of the warlords? Indeed, the swordsman nodded, but calm your nerves, you are of no concern. Although, I am curious. The Krieg pirates just vacated the premises. Would you happen to know why? We did that, Luffy shrugged, as casual as ever. That guy is a total jackass, so we beat him up. Did you now? All by yourself? Nah, I just took the captain. My crew handled his guys, they were awesome. The many women around the table blushed. Such bravado, as to be expected of the young. The tiniest flicker of mirth crossed his face before moving to an empty table. I am feeling peckish, however. If you are occupied. You want to sit with us, Luffy? Kaya yelped. You can't just talk to him like that. He's with the world government. Tangentially, anyway, Mihawk added, but since I have no business at the moment, I suppose it wouldn't hurt. Yosaku and Johnny's jaws hit the table as the most renowned swordsman in the world pulled up a chair and actually sat down opposite Luffy. Makino and Kurina had to fight the urge to scoot away, although the warlord did remove the sword from his back and propped it up against the wall. Zeph headed out to take Hawkeye's order personally and promised to prepare everything himself. Reiju handed him his appetizer of albendigas first before returning with a spread for the pirate crew and took a seat herself. As the Straw Hats helped themselves to the food with Luffy gulping morsels down with his usual aplomb, Hawkeye simply kept to himself until he noticed Kuina. The brunette was shaking in her seat but staring directly at him. Her eyes darted to the ornate blade behind the swordsman. Hawkeye noticed the katana leaned up next to her. The Wado Ichimonji, he recognized instantly, a fine quality blade. Let me guess. You're an aspiring sword fighter looking to challenge me. Yes, but I want to know something first. Is it true you took down Krieg's fleet? Indeed. Why? Makino asked. Were you sent after him? No, him and his little band happened to disturb my nap. The ladies, even Kuina, all paled at that. Luffy was the only exception as he finished off the last of the food. Reiju excused herself to the kitchen to help with the entrees, grateful to put some space between herself and the man who just casually admitted to sinking 4,900 pirates. I see, Kuina gulped eventually, so that's what it means, to be the world's best. Ah, so that is your vision. Why? She gripped the band of fabric around her arm as her nerves calmed down. Because a friend of mine and I had the same promise. To be the world's greatest. Do you still intend to challenge me after hearing that? Yes. Curious, Hawkeye reached up to the cross draped around his neck and pulled on the bottom. A small dagger, only 6 inches long, gleamed in his hand. Is that a pocket knife? Nami muttered. It's the smallest blade I have. Now, just how determined are you? In the next 2 seconds, the knife was firmly embedded in Kuina's left shoulder. The only indication that Hawkeye moved was his still outstretched arm. Her lips were tightened in pain but Kuina hadn't moved. Impressive, not so much as a whimper, he admitted. I saw it, Kuina growled, ahead, but I couldn't. You mean before I moved? Do you mean to say you're psychic? No, my haki isn't enough yet. Hawkeye actually raised an eyebrow. You know of haki? No one outside of the Grand Line ever mentions it. How could you possibly have trained in it? Because I taught her, Luffy said simply. I want everyone on my crew to be strong enough to handle themselves for whatever they want to do. Quite noble, for a pirate. What is your goal, boy? I'm going to be king of the pirates. Luffy's carefree smile and total confidence at that actually made Hawkeye lighten up a touch. You have an even tougher journey than her, then. The entrees came with Reiju serving Hawkeye's filet and potato gratin while the rest of the Straw Hats had a smorgasbord. The pink cat did a double take at the knife still sticking out of Kuina's arm and offered to get the first aid kit but Kuina just said she'd get it herself. A shame for the others that meant ripping it out in front of them and tossing it back to Hawkeye with a spray of blood getting over the table. Great, now my appetite is ruined, Kurina complained. Ooh, more for me. Nami's fist smashed into his cheek. Oh no, you don't. That's no way to treat Luffy, Makino scowled. Like he wouldn't take food off of our plates if he could help it. She's not bluffing, Kaya warned Moody and Sari, I've seen him do it. And from there, the table devolving into chaos as the Straw Hats yelled, joked and bickered like a real family with no heed for the warlord still sitting among them. The world's greatest swordsman just sat there like another person, calmly enjoying his food with a wry thought crossing his mind. So, this is the brat Shanks wouldn't stop yammering about all those times we sparred, no wonder he actually gave up his hat. As surreal as it was to the cooks of the Barati, Hawkeye otherwise didn't cause any trouble. The only minor hiccup was when he spotted Jin staring slack-jawed at him from the opposite end of the room. I thought the Krieg pirates all left? He simply asked. The former chief commander scrambled back in the kitchen, sounding like he was about ready to vomit in terror. Nami explained as best that she could that the pirate admiral all but disowned Jin and that was all the answer the warlord needed. Perhaps I will be paying him a visit. I do hate to leave a score unsettled. Boy, a question for you. What's up? Luffy set around a spoonful of his pudding, making Reiju facepalm while Makino just shook her head. You clearly know something of the grand players on the world stage. What if you had to confront the other warlords? I'd beat them, except for you. I could have very nearly killed your swordsman earlier, and yet you're so flippant. You got the drop on me today, Kuina admitted, her arm hastily bandaged by Kaya so she didn't bleed out anymore, but that's going to change. The next time I see you, I will defeat you. Really? A red glow surrounded her as one hand reached for her blade. Really? If Hawkeye found her devil fruit strange, he didn't comment on it as he ate the last bite of his tart tatin and stood to leave after leaving a sack of cash to cover his meal. Very well, Shimotsuki Kuina. I will be keeping an eye on your endeavors and gauging just how worthy you are of being my successor. I shall, however, commend you on one area you've already learned. Restraint is a virtue. I have one question for you, if you would be willing to answer. Oh, and what's that? Do you believe that anyone could become the world's greatest swordsman? But of course. Power comes from anywhere, contrary to what some of my employers perceive. Concepts such as nobility, species and indeed sex play such a trifling role. And besides, Boa Hancock would castrate any man who thought otherwise. With that last remark kept to himself, the master swordsman departed with little fanfare and was soon drifting away. The Straw Hats didn't stick around much longer with an eager Seri, even-tempered Moody Owl slinging their things over their shoulder. Yosaku and Johnny had decided to stay behind, admitting that Arlong the Saw was way above their pay grade. Kuina bid them both a fond farewell, saying that the knuckleheads were welcome around any time. As the rest of the crew, Luffy noticed Reiju was moving right along. Aren't you going to say goodbye? You better. They all turned to see Jin strolling up to shake Reiju's hand. Nami piped up, what are you still doing here, anyway? I felt pretty damn bad about causing this whole mess, so I worked out a deal with the old man. I'm gonna be in charge of security here and pay back the kindness you gave me, Reiju. Not that that isn't really nice, Moody asked, but isn't that overkill? I get that Krieg was a total asshole. I've spent my entire life in the gutter. No family, no home, nothing to my name. I followed Krieg because he took me in and taught me power was everything. That meal Reiju gave me was the first free thing I was given, ever. I'd be dead without her. The newly hired muscle brandished a massive club that looked more like a bowling ball grafted onto a long steel pipe. And if that jackass Krieg comes back for this ship, I'll happily bash his teeth in. Teach him that he made a huge mistake double-crossing his word to me. But don't think that means we're getting soft, Patty crowed. The Barati will always be famous for its fighting cooks. Yeah, but having a little extra backup wouldn't hurt. Maybe we could actually keep the waiters around this time, Carne muttered. Reiju smiled. Good to hear. I wouldn't want to come back and found your cooking somehow got worse. All of the chefs growled at her arrogance, with one exception. Chef Zeph was glaring down from the upper balcony above the front door looking as impassive as ever. That is, until his sous chef turned up to see him one last time. Reiju, you take good care of yourself out there. The pinkette suddenly leapt up straight from the deck to the upper level and all but crushed Zeph in the tightest hug she could give. She sniffled in relief as his hands wrapped around her shoulders, wishing her well and to always remember where she came from. Thank you for being such a good father to me, don't worry your head over it, and if any of them cause you trouble. I won't run away, not this time. Reiju then hopped down and boarded the Going Merry, waving goodbye to the Barati until it was out of sight. But once she put her things away and inspect the ship's kitchen, Luffy called a meeting. First and foremost was telling them about their next destination, Arlong Park. As frazzled as Seri might have been about challenging a fishman pirate, an explanation from Nami was enough to change her mind. So, I'll bring a skillet, some butter and lemon then, Reiju half-kidded, much to the redhead's relief. Luffy then let them all in on the secret about his ties to Nika, once again Seri taking it the hardest. To think that some eldritch asshole was behind the entire world government made her more than glad that she threw away her crown. But the real clencher of the day was being offered a devil fruit, along with being told that they'll all be learning haki and the 6 powers. Considering they all saw the results, all 3 ladies nodded. Awesome, Moody, you joined first so you'll get a fruit first. As you say, Captain, she chuckled before stepping forward. Luffy placed his hand on her forehead and one golden glare later, the blonde looked down at her hands and felt her new power emerge. A blue mist suddenly started coming out of her pores, making all of the other women shiver. Moody locked eyes with Kaya and the younger blonde found herself feeling sluggish, tired and not interested in doing anything. And just as soon as it started, it stopped and everyone warmed back up in a minute. The chill fruit might make for a good distraction. Cool, Seri, you're next. The former queen stepped up and when Luffy was done, she could feel something buzzing in her stomach. She held up her hands and everyone saw a tiny little bead perched in the palm of her hand. That's it, Karina asked only for several more to phase out of her skin, making the brunette yell in shock as the little insects flew off and around her. Several of the more skittish girls ducked but soon realized that the little swarm were flying passively in rings above Seri's head. The hive fruit, How fitting, I think I much prefer being this kind of queen. That left only Reiju, who had to admit she was feeling quite excited. But when the hand came off of her forehead, she could feel something strange. It was like her own skin felt different somehow. The others then all watched the first zone fruit take effect. Reiju's skin turned from fair to a deep tan before they all realized it was a coat of fur. A long, thin tail ending in a pink tuft emerged from the base of her spine. Her face elongated into a feline muzzle with a mouth of razor-sharp teeth, rounded ears now poking out from her pink hair. She grew a foot in height and wider all around thanks to a sharp increase in muscle mass for a more Amazonian physique to complement her beastly new self. What the? Reiju yelped, looking down at the claws that now topped her fingers. She's a catwoman. Nami balked. What kind of fruit is that? The cat fruit. Model, lion. I feel so much stronger like this. Baffling as it may be, I'll take any advantage I can get. Reiju was also thankful that she could return to normal with a bit of thought. And as per the norm, the rest of the day was spent getting the newest crewmates introduced to haki and the 6 powers. According to Nami, they had about 6 days before they reached the Konami Islands. While Luffy usually allowed for fun and games on the regular, this stretch of days was the exception. He pushed all of them to spend as much of their time training as possible. For the first time, he actually enforced his position as captain to keep everyone focused on learning the techniques or to develop their devil fruits. It also gave everyone a chance to properly settle in their new roles. First and foremost was Reiju as the ship's chef. Every moment she wasn't sparring or practicing was spent in the kitchen, relishing in having a space to call her own where she could experiment with recipes and keep everyone energized through the hours of strenuous activity. She also proved herself as a top-tier fighter, giving Kuina a run for her money in spars and only Luffy being able to soundly beat her even when she transformed into her hybrid form. Sari and Moody officially took up the bottom rung as deckhands, since Luffy refused to call them cabin girls. Anything from tidying up the girls' quarters to sweeping the floors, the blondes worked their hardest. Any worries about the former royal being resistant to work were unfounded as she threw herself into any chore or challenge thrown at her. And Moody found a smaller second role in helping patch up any clothes that got damaged or worn with all the activity, thanks to her years running a boutique. And, most surprisingly of all, Luffy headed to his room alone every night. He wished them all good night and asked them to get up early the next day, but there was a clear tension to his movements. Reiju and the new blondes had learned about the whole arrangement on their first day and were all quite curious. Sari in particular was eager to have an actually decent man after throwing Stelly out of her quarters dozens of times. By the night before they were due to arrive, Makino swore she would take care of it. She knocked on the captain's quarters but found no answer. Twisting the knob to see it wasn't locked, she wondered if he just crashed extremely early. "Luffy, are you alright?" "Yeah. What's up?" She pushed her way in and noticed that Luffy was actually lifting the bed over his head like a giant wooden barbell. The greenette then feels something heavy in the air, a ripple of force that makes her stumble. Luffy only then looks over Ur's haki had affected her, dropping his bed back down and checking on her. "It's not like you to hold yourself up like this. What's going on?" Luffy sat down, rubbing his head at her sincere question and sighed. "That hawk guy today made me realize something. I knew that if I was gonna take down Nika, I had to be strongest." "And he's stronger than you thought he was?" "Nah, I knew about that. Shanks told me he spars with him back when he was at my village. Probably still does." That made the barmaid's eyes bug out. She knew Shanks was a force to be reckoned, but to treat one of the warlords as a sparring partner? It made her all the more grateful that the redhead was such a layabout. The issue is when he threw the knife at Kuina. "Oh, Luffy, don't worry about her, she's already healed up," although Kaya all but had to force her for a checkup. "It's not that she's weak, I couldn't have stopped it either." Makino's eyes widened. Luffy seemed to finally realize just how responsible he was for his crew, and the thought of any of them getting offed on his watch was starting to get to him. "Luffy, you don't have to worry about us." "Yes, I do. You all are my friends, and I've slept with most of you. What kind of captain would I be if I couldn't protect my crew?" Seeing that she wasn't getting anywhere, Makino walked out and returned a few minutes later with a coy smile on her face. "Hey Luffy, would you mind seeing something for a few minutes?" Okay." Makino then walked behind Luffy, keeping his eyes clasped as they walked up the deck. She explicitly forbade him from using observation haki and thus was mildly surprised when he was walked into what was becoming just the crew quarters. What was supposed to be divided by gender had just become 2 separate rooms with Kaya, Kurina, Makino and Kuina in one while Nami, Reiju, Sari and Moody in the other. They were all now standing in the latter half with all of the girls staring at Luffy. "Now then," Makino said, "tell all of them what you just told me." He did just that, not seeing where she was going with all of this. Kuina, bandages still wrapped around the arm from Hawkeye's little stunt, looked at her captain with a curious gaze, somewhere between kindness and anger. "I absolutely hate to admit this, but I don't have a chance of beating Hawkeye now. He could have easily disarmed me with a pocket knife." Luffy looked off to the side, trying not to stare at where she had been stabbed. The brunette yanked his head back to meet her gaze. But you know what I hate more? Being pitied. Huh? I'm not pitying you. Sounds like it to me. Moody frowned. You think we're really going to just run away? Hey, I never said that. Reiju walked up to him with a fierce look in her uncovered eye. We chose to follow you because we believe in you. You believe in us, right? Of course I do. Luffy was starting to get genuinely angry, curling his hands into fists as he looked around and saw all of them glaring at him. I never doubted you. Nami walked up, the thief keeping her hands firmly on her hips. Sure sounds like it to me. You don't think I'm scared as hell about tomorrow? I know I can't beat Arlong by myself. But I'm not gonna jump ship. I'm not giving up. Luffy's shout echoed against the walls and rattled the whole ship. I'd never abandon you all. And I don't expect any of you all to quit either. Luffy fell back against the door, suddenly heaving ragged breaths. I just don't want to lose any of you, because… Makino sat down next to him, a gentle hand on his shoulder. What did you say to Krieg before? It's not all about power, but working together. Well, that's what we're here for. Kaya sat down on his other side, leaning her head into the crook of his neck. I won't deny that Hawkeye really scared me. And I know there's plenty of others just like him who could easily beat us. So we aren't ready to go up against a warlord yet. That doesn't mean we can't do it someday. You all can pick another one, Kuina insisted. I don't care which one, but nobody takes down Hawkeye but me. Seeing the confidence in her voice, plus nobody batting an eye at the thought of actually going up against one of the Navy's feared privateers, he said it himself that a crew was only as strong as its weakest member. And right now, he was the one dragging them down even if only a bit. Thanks, guys. I'll never doubt you all again. Glad to hear it. But now that you're here, there is one more issue we should address. Huh? What's that? Sari knelt down to face him eye to eye, her gaze half-lidded. That I'm quite excited to see what a real man is like. The ex-queen leaned in to steal a kiss from her captain, making him tense up before wrapping arms around her shoulders for a tighter embrace. Luffy then felt two more women sidle up to him. Good to see you're back to your old self, Captain, Moody purred into his left ear, because Makino told me all about your first night and I'm dying to have one for myself. Hey, I'm the one who was stuck on a floating restaurant for years. Reiju argued from his right. Do you have any idea how many new cooks tried to hit on me? I need this. Luffy looked around and saw all of his crew ladies giving him sultry stares with the exception of one. Kaya was still standing against the far wall with a nervous blush on her face. I would like that too. Luffy looked around and felt another, smaller pang of guilt. He never meant to deprive them all of anything. Well, on the plus side, he had an easy fix for that. Unlike the long, fun romp that was last night, the morning after was quiet and all business. After cleaning up the cabin, with Luffy volunteering to help since most of it was his mess, and a nice, filling breakfast from Reiju, the Straw Hat Pirates spent their time preparing themselves physically and mentally for what was to come. Nami had been standing on the bow of the ship for hours, a spyglass in her hand and one eye on the horizon. And now she finally caught sight of it. There, to the southeast, Arlong Park. Luffy took the telescope from her and spotted the multi-tiered white building and the small inlet with a curious eye. That's the place? Doesn't look like a pirate hangout. It's been an eyesore for the last 8 years. Before we leave, we are burning the place to the ground. The sheer hatred and pain in her voice made Luffy wrap an arm around her waist. Nami let out a long, thankful breath through her nose. Thank you. Don't sweat it. That Arlong is as good as dead. The redhead turned and saw a muted Kurina trying to land hits on a blind Makino, the latter blocking almost all of them thanks to observation haki. Kuina was glowing red as she tried to strike Reiju in her half-lioness form. Kaya was up on the crow's nest, keeping an eye out for any marines or suspicious ripples in the water. Moody, dressed in a simple black tank top and yoga pants, was landing punches on a band of ropes tied around the mizzenmast, and Sari was commanding a swarm of her bees to fly in laps between the sails and rigging, improving her finesse. Yeah, he is. Nami smiled as she stared at her home island in the distance, dying to see the look on that fish bastard's face when his oh-so-precious empire came crumbling down around him. Chapter 11. Turning the Tables, Landfall on the Konami Islands. As Kurina and Moody handled the ropes to lower their lifeboat into the ocean, Luffy kept a firm eye on the Konami Islands ahead. He was with the last group to depart, paddling their little dinghy to what used to Gosa village. Reiju and Makino had left first, followed by Kaya, Kuina and Sally as a trio. The Going Merry itself was being steered towards Arlong Park, Nami at the helm to play the part of a loyal Arlong pirate who just robbed a crew of their entire haul. All of the girls had the same goal once they reached land: follow the route on their maps provided by Nami and beat the stuffing out of every fishman in sight. Now, they could launch a direct assault on the park itself, but the redhead had forwarded this plan for 2 reasons. 1. It just so happened to be collection day. Arlong will have squads of his crew fishmen dispersed around the island to collect tons of berries from every village, meaning they can whittle down his forces little by little. And the other? If Arlong has one redeeming quality, it's that he genuinely cares for his crew. So, I want to see how he likes it. I want him to watch his friends get beaten, stolen from, and made to feel weak and afraid. Don't kill them, though, even though they've murdered plenty of people. I want them all to crawl back to Arlong Park terrified. Then, just for once, Arlong will know exactly how he's made all of us feel. Again, Nami's voice sounded so angry and bitter. All of this pain she had to keep bottled up inside her for the sake of saving her home. Luffy's hands curled into fists, swearing that he would punch that shark's teeth out. But unlike the others, Luffy was walking alone through Kokoyashi village. It was a small, quaint place full of one-story houses, a few market stalls set up along a flat dirt road and a palpable tension in the air. A few people spied on him through blinded windows, but nobody tried to actually approach him. According to Nami, this place used to be such a vibrant little town where everyone knew each other and acted like a community. Now they lived in constant fear for their lives. As much as he wanted to help them now, Luffy had a plan to stick to. He walked down a small side path leading off from the end of the village until he came across a simple house painted pastel blue with dozens of tangerine trees. He had officially arrived at Nami's house. "Hello," he called, letting himself inside and being met with a shriek. A young woman with blue hair, a swirling dark blue tattoo on left arm and shoulder, and a simple get-up of a beige tank top and worn blue jeans. She quickly stood up from the small dining room table and pointed at him. "Who the hell are you? Get out of my house." Luffy just smiled. "You must be Nijiko, right?" "The hell does that matter? I said get out." He pointedly ignored Nijiko, fully inviting himself inside and plopping down at the seat opposite from where she was. The brunette just gawked at his brazen behavior before scowling at him. "What do you think you're doing?" "Waiting for Nami to show up. I thought you were her big sister." That made her flinch in surprise. "You know Nami?" "Yep, she's my friend." Nijiko crossed her arms over her chest. "I call bull. Nami doesn't have friends. She's a thief, and a traitor. Now get out before I force you out." Luffy just frowned. "That's no way to talk about your only family." "Listen to me, Buster, I don't know who you think you are, but you need to get out of here. It's not safe on this island." "Nope, sorry, not leaving until Nami gets here." He then plopped both his feet up on the table, making Nijiko growl but eventually throw her hands up. If this guy wanted to throw his life away so badly, who is she to stop him? Besides, if Nami did catch this guy here, she'd probably smack him with her bow staff into next week. The people of Fail Village were all lined up, sacks of berries ready to present to the two fishmen waiting at the end of the street. Nobody so much as blinked as they handed over the money they spent all month slaving away to earn over to the two cronies of Arlong the Saw. Next, the albacore tuna man shouted, the old lady in front of him shuffling away. Standing close to 7 feet tall and covered in mottled gray scales, he made sure to bare his teeth as the next person approached. A woman in her early 30s, brown hair tied back with a young girl holding her left hand and a toddler clinging to her left leg. Here you are, sir." She handed over a sack with 200,000 berries. A quick bit of counting later, however, and he frowned. "You trying to pull something on us, huh? What do you mean? We've been keeping tabs here. Didn't you just have a baby 2 months ago?" "And no sir, I don't recall that at all." The tuna man turned to his friend, a heavy-set pufferfish man, and pointed to one of the houses. "Go search your house. If you see a brat in there, break its neck." Several of the townspeople grimaced, but everybody kept their heads down. There was no sense in getting themselves killed just because one lady broke the rules. The rotund fish man was about to open the door when he noticed two figures walking up. Two women, one with dark green hair in a long plaid dress and another who was practically pink from head to toe. "Hey, who the hell are you?" "Oh, we're just visiting," the green one said with a chipper smile. "Pardon me, but do you know Arlong?" The villagers all paled. They wanted to scream and ward them off, but the tuna man beat them to it. "This is official business, scram." "PFT, somebody needs to teach you some manners," the pink one scoffed. Now the entire village was holding its breath. "The fuck did you just say?" the pufferfish barked, marching over and grabbing Reiju by the shoulder. "You puny humans ought to stay out of our way before you." His words died when the woman in front of him shifted and grew into a humanoid lioness, growling at him in anger. "What the fuck?" I was craving fish," she grinned before sinking her claws into his shoulder, heedless of the poisonous spikes that covered his beige skin. "Fugo, no." The other fishman ran up to help his friend only for the green one to run up to him. "You better get out of my way. I may not be Karubi, but I still know fishman karate. I'll break you in half." The woman just leapt into the air, a good 15 feet, much to the amazement of the villagers. But the fishman just jumped after her, readying a watery fist that was sure to break her ribs. "Moonwalk." The woman somehow jumped again, off of the air, making him blanch. "Huuuuh. That's impossible. You're gonna pay for all these people you've hurt." The pleasant demeanor from before was gone. Now she had a furious glare as she fell towards him, her feet outstretched as if she planned to stomp on him. He just grinned. She was about to get a taste of what superior fishman fighting techniques were like. HK heals. Her double kick met his fist, only for an earth-shaking blast of force to send him skidding back down the ground. See Cory? Fugo shouted in dismay, only for the lion woman to wrap her tail around his throat. As his friend slowly got up, he noticed his elbow was sticking out from the rest of his arm, and several fingers were missing from his bloody, mangled heap of a right hand. Cory screamed in agony and terror, especially as the green-haired witch slowly got up from the ground. Stop, please, we will give you all the money we have. It's not your money, it belongs to the people of these islands, she shouted. You've been taking advantage of these people for far too long. Fugo was then thrown aside like garbage, gashes bleeding across his body and one eye swollen shut. The lion woman transformed back into a normal person, but Cory could now see the gleam of a predator in her eyes. This is your only warning. Go to Arlong Park and tell your boss he's not welcome here anymore. The two fishmen, terrified and beaten worse than they've ever been in their lives, CK'd to their headquarters while the people of Fail Village stared in complete awe. The mother from before, a little boy and a tween girl at her side, were the first to speak. Thank you, those monsters were about to go after my baby. That was amazing. The little girl jumped up, her smile lighting up the whole village. Are you with the Marines? No, we just happened to be wandering through and decided to help. Makino and Reiju then walked right past the astonished crowd, heading off to the next village. Though the kids waved them goodbye, the adults all felt the first real twinge of hope in years. They all then happily took their money back inside, wondering if they might finally be able to spend it on themselves and each other for a change. Karina and Moody both felt sick to their stomachs as they walked through what used to be a village. To think Arlong was so paranoid and petty that he would flip every single house upside down because one person happened to possess a weapon. I actually ran into a few places like this, Moody mentioned. Pirates storm in, start laying down the law, and anyone who doesn't want to live that way either has to escape or beg for help from the Navy. Assuming they aren't tapping snails, Karina added, and yeah, you should ask Nami some of the things we went through. You would not believe the number of places you can hide a gun. As the two ladies walked, they spotted something darting back in between two wrecked buildings with a yelp. They naturally went to investigate and spotted a young boy, no older than 10, holding a knife. Huh? You two aren't fishmen, he muttered. Well, we sure hope we don't look like them, Karina kidded. What's a little kid like you doing around here? I was looking for anything we could use, this used to be my village. Oh, that's horrible, Moody sighed. Is there anything we can do to help? Huh? No, you two need to get out of here, before one of them sees you? Hey, what's going on over there? The boy paled as a particularly big-boned fishman walked over, dressed in a loud tropical shirt and several jagged teeth sticking out over his lower lip. I haven't seen you two ladies around here. State your business. Oh, we're just wanderers, Karina lied effortlessly. Our boat was just brought here by the tides. Oh, is that so? Well then, you ought to know that you're on the Arlong Pirates' territory. That'll be 10,000 bearers from each of you. Moody raised an eyebrow. She glanced back at the young boy, shivering in terror just being around one of these creeps. Then she turned her glance up at the fishman, his hand held out expecting cash. Well, sir, I'm quite sorry to say that we don't have any money on us. Then I suggest you leave before I make you leave. Now, is there any need for that? Why don't you just relax? A chilly blue air filled the air. The little boy started shivering, while the fishman just slumped. His posture grew lazier, his eyes glassy. What was he even doing here again? There, isn't that better? She chuckled. Now, I want to ask you a few things. You're with Arlong the Saw, right? Yeah, he sighed, sounding utterly bored. Do you really hate the people of this island so much? Arlong and his main cronies do. I'm just doing my job. Oh, wasn't Arlong a member of a warlord's crew? Yeah, he was. Jinbei, the son of the sea. I miss him, he was way nicer. And waay stronger too. The little boy chuckled at hearing one of Arlong's own fishmen diss him, but this guy didn't even seem to hear him. He stared in awe before noticing the blue-haired girl was going from house to house, crawling in through broken windows. Even as she broke glass and dragged a burlap sack that was steadily getting bigger behind her, this guy was totally oblivious. The waves of cold coming from Moody made him shiver and made his teeth clatter, but again the fishman didn't even see him. The blonde just kept asking him questions, and he kept giving blasé answers like he wondered what he was even doing here. Only when Karina had thoroughly gone through the entire place did Moody cut off her power, but the fishman was still dazed and uninterested in anything going on. Karina then waltzed up to the side of the baffled pirate. Okay, we're done here, she snarked, her voice still quiet. Volume change. Forte. Forte fist. Her voice suddenly boomed. When her knuckles met his gut, the fishman was blasted backwards like a cannonball, the ground cracking from the sheer loudness. He crashed through one of the upturned houses before shakily standing up on the other side. Though he walked with a limp, he frantically moved back towards Arlong Park as fast as possible. You okay? Karina asked the little boy, her voice back to normal. Why yeah. Who are you two? We're just passing through. Now, what were you planning to do with that knife? He flinched, dropping the little pocket knife clutched in one of his hands. I was going to use that on Arlong. Yeah, this place was my home before. I see. Well, don't worry anymore, kid. We know somebody super strong who'll take care of Arlong for you. Karina even reached into her pocket, handing him 1,000 berry bill and telling him that was his money and no one else's. Kuina had to admit, she was impressed. She had been training herself to the bone for over a decade. She had been sailing around by herself, collecting heads to support herself. She figured that the shipping company heiress and the literal queen would have balked or cried or fallen apart when they walked through the Arlong pirates' territory. The blue net then kicked herself for doubting her crewmates. Kaya and Sally were as calm as they could be as they walked ahead. The queen held out her hand as a little honeybee floated down onto her outstretched finger. MMMHMM. The other two just glanced at each other, confused. All they heard was a high-pitched buzzing. The little insect phased back into her hand and Sally turned to tell them, "We've got a serious problem up ahead." The fishmen spotted someone with guns in his house. All three broke into a run. They ran up to the entrance of the little hamlet just as 4 fishmen started dragging people out of their houses, yelling to be quiet unless they want jaws or limbs broken. Kuina pointed to the lines of houses on either side of the only street. Kaya jumped up onto the left and Sally onto the right, leaving the swordswoman seemingly alone as she took a deep breath and shouted, "Hey, assholes, over here." The commotion stopped as the fishman spotted her, instantly recognizing her as the pirate huntress. "So, you want to collect Arlong's bounty, huh?" One of them scoffed. "Then you're going to have to go through us." Kuina smirked as she drew the Wado Ichimonji, only moving her feet until shave. "What the?" She disappeared. The villagers exclaimed, wondering who this madwoman was. The fishman split up to find her only to catch something glinting from the rooftops. "Hey, who are you?" Kaya stared down as she summoned more and more gem flechettes, dozens of them floating around her head and hands until she thrust her arms forwards. 30-carat rain. The others all watched as over a dozen of the sparkling shots found their mark, burying themselves in the fishman and leaving him yowling in pain. "You're gonna pay for that, you little." "Oi, behind you." He heard his friend too late, Kuina landing an overhead slash to his back. The first fishman was now out cold on the ground, the blue net smirking at the others. 1 down, 3 to go. "You think this is some kind of game?" "I'd actually say so, yes." The other 3 gasped at Sally standing just above them. One of the Arlong pirates was about to leap up and attack her only to spot hundreds of yellow jackets buzzing behind her. Vermilion eye. Pincer. 2 of the fishmen panicked as they were bombarded, the vicious insects buzzing around and stinging them without remorse. Every barb that landed in them soon resulted in a giant RN. The hardened fighters yelp in pain, especially when they went for the face, hand or foot. They were so distracted by the barrage that they didn't notice Kuina charging in, unsheathing her sword and slicing them both down. That left only one thoroughly terrified fishman, this one looking like a cross between a flounder and a blonde-haired surfer dude, gawping at his fallen comrades. How? No one in the East Blue has devil fruits. Who are you? Trust me, this is nothing. Now either get out of here or you're next, Kuina shouted. And she had to give credit to his bravery, charging ahead with a yell. A shame that he didn't see the swordsman smirk as she rushed ahead, covering her blade with armament haki along the way. The flounder man went for a kick and soon fell to the ground missing a foot. The townspeople couldn't believe it. They had seen these monsters shrug off gunfire and casually sink ships. How could one random woman with a sword topple this one in a single attack? And just as quickly as these 3 rescued them, they walked down the road while the fishman had to limp back towards Arlong Park a total wreck. Only when both parties were out of sight did the people break out into cheers. Not only was the town still standing, but someone finally put these bastards in their place. How could things get any better? Little did they know that by the end of the day, the Straw Hat Pirates had already saved over a dozen villages that day. "Wow, these trees are all really nice," Luffy admired, plucking a ripe tangerine off a low-hanging branch. "Yes, they are. You want to know how I know that? Because this is my orchard, I grow them all. Now get out." Nijiko shouted right in front of him, but he just casually hopped over her. The blue net was at her wit's end. After trespassing in her house, he just wandered into the grove. And since she wouldn't let anyone touch her mother's trees, she had been following this oaf around trying to make him get the hint already. Luffy, as usual, didn't care as he bit into the perfect little fruit and gushed at the juices flowing down his throat. It wasn't meat, of course, but he was really impressed. Maybe he could convince Nami to plant some of these on the garden on the Mary's aft deck. "Yoo-hoo, big sis, I'm whom?" Nijiko turned and sighed in relief. "About time you got here. Could you please tell this meathead to leave? He's been bugging me for almost half an hour." Nami walked up to Luffy as he was finishing the last of the tangerine, happily jumping in his arms and planting a gentle kiss on his cheek. "Ah, was my sister all mean to you?" "Hey, nah, she's cool, and her tangerines are super yummy." What the? Nami had to stifle a laugh at the sheer shock on the farmer's face, her pale skin almost the same color as her hair. Nijiko, meet Monkey D. Luffy, my captain and boyfriend. B-B-B-B boyfriend. Wow, she's almost as loud as you, Luffy odd. You're lucky I like you, so I'll take that as a compliment, Nami said with a jab at his abs before turning to explain things to her sister before she passed out. A few minutes later and Nijiko was sitting back in her house, a cup of tea in hand and trying to desperately wrap her head around all this. So, let me get this straight, this guy is a pirate? Yep, Luffy smiled, and I'm gonna be king of the pirates. Sure, bud. And he managed to get you to join his crew? Yes, I know, it sounds insane, but he's actually one of the nice, not asshole pirate crews. What were they called again? Peace Main Pirates, that's us. Yeah, right. And now this guy is going to beat up Arlong. Why exactly? Because he's a total jerk, and nobody hurts one of my friends. Nijiko then took a long swig of her tea, draining the cup, before looking at them both. Well, thank you very much for entertaining me today, but I'm afraid you're going to have to leave. Luffy just tilted his head. Huh? Why not? Because that's a nice little fantasy you have there, but there's no way this random guy you found can beat someone like Arlong. Nami just frowned. Look, I thought this guy was a complete goofball when I met him, but he's really something else. He's already taken down Buggy the Clown and Don Krieg. That made Nijiko pause. Wait, you don't mean the two most wanted pirates around here, do you? Yep, but they were really weak. Maybe the Marines around here just suck. Nijiko hurriedly poured herself another cup and downed it in a single gulp. Yeah, you go ahead and think that. Nami, you can't be serious with this guy. And how the heck is he your boyfriend? Hey, it's not that weird, Luffy griped. All of the other girls on my crew seem pretty happy. Now the brunette dropped her cup. What do you mean, other girls? Are you seeing any of them? Yeah, all of them. UWHAAAT? Nijiko howled, giving her sister a run for her money with her temper. So it's not enough you fill her head with insane ideas and draft her onto your crew, but now you're cheating on her. What kind of two-berry tart do you think my sister is? Nijiko, calm down. It's not like that. We have an open relationship on our ship. Yeah, you want to join too? Nami promptly slapped him across the face for one stupid comment too many before devolving into a full-blown argument with Nijiko. The sisters yelled back and forth over how Arlong was going down or how that was impossible. Nijiko insisting that there was no way some random pirate Nami was picked up by could do it if multiple ships full of Marines couldn't even land on their shores. He honestly felt bad if this was how demoralized Arlong had made everyone. He was about to step in when he picked up something big through observation haki, turning to look out the front window. Girls. What? They both shouted. Is there a Marine base around here? What? Of course not, Nijiko scoffed. Otherwise they would have taken care of Arlong years ago. Weird, because there's about 100 sailors coming this way. Both girls glanced outside and nearly fainted as they spotted dozens of capped men in white heading up the path to the orchard. The only two standouts was the CO in a customized gray uniform with mouse ears added to his cap to match the whiskers on his face, and a gentleman with a thick mustache, scars all over his face and a scowl like he was hating life right now. What the hell is Genzo doing with them? Nijiko whispered. Don't panic. Just stay in here and let me do the talking, Nami insisted before going outside to meet the crowd herself. Good day, madam, the weaselly Marine cackled. I am Colonel Nezumi of Marine Branch 16. Do you happen to know where I might find Nami? That's me, sir. What seems to be the problem? Kekekekeke, he chuckled, making Nami's hair stand on end. I'm afraid we've found you have quite the career, Nami. You have quite the sticky fingers. She gulped down her nerves. Are really? Oh, but we've also heard you exclusively target pirates. I think that's enough to avoid formally charging you. But I'm afraid stealing is still stealing, so we'll need to confiscate the stolen goods. Nami's eyes almost popped out of her head. Dozens of Marines spread out across the orchard, intent on finding her treasure. That's what you're here for, Genzo ranted. I kept telling you about Arlong. He's been enslaving us for almost a decade. This girl lost her mother to that monster. And you're focused on some petty thievery? Nijiko burst out through the front door, just as enraged. What's the matter with you? We've been waiting for Marines who could finally put that fish freak in his place for years. Go deal with him. Goodness, such hostility. Nezumi waved off. I don't suppose either of you colluded with this thief, did you? Sir, we've spotted a recently disturbed patch of dirt several feet long. Well then, dig it up. You're not touching that. Nami dashed over, some a cloud under her feet. She landed a falling blow with her staff to the Marine's shoulder. Of his hand, but now several of his comrades were pointing guns at Nami. Now, let's not do anything we'll regret. Stand down, Nami. Stealing almost 100 million berries is no little charge. Everyone froze in shock, save for one. Luffy stood in the doorway, his arms crossed as his hat hid his eyes. How did you know? Who are you supposed to be? I'm Nami's friend. And I asked you. How did you know how much money she had? Nobody said anything. Several of the sailors turned their weapons on him as Nezumi chuckled, young man, it's not wise to interfere with marine business. You could charged with obstruction of justice, you know. Justice my ass, Nijiko howled. You're working with that fucker, aren't you? He tipped you off? Nami just got back from Arlong Park and told him she almost had all the money for her deal. You greedy bastard, Genzo added. This poor girl has been slaving away for 8 years for our sake, and now you're going to rip that away from her at the last minute? Huh? Nami balked. You know about that? How? The whole village has known for years. Like anyone would believe a little girl would just willingly work with her mother's killer for money. I grilled Nijiko for the details one day and told everyone else. The colonel pulled out his own pistol and pointed it at Nijiko's temple. She flinched in shock and glared at the insufferable grin on the rat man's face. Well now, this is all very touching. You three will have plenty of time to sort out your issues behind bars. All of you are under arrest. Now one of you find that money before. Gum bullet. The colonel's command died as a fist suddenly rocketed into the side of his head, sending him bowling backwards with his weapon uselessly clattering to the ground. Nijiko followed the punch and saw a rubbery arm connecting to the blow, before watching Luffy snap into place where the colonel once was. A muscled arm rested on her shoulder. You okay? He asked her. Why yeah, I'm fine, what the? Nezumi cried, one half of his face already turning blue. You just struck a marine officer, I'll have you executed, hooligan, who do you think you are? I'm Monkey D. Luffy, and nobody hurts one of my friends. Get out of here right now before I kick all of your asses. And now leveling threats? That's it, I'm reporting you to headquarters, men, capture him and all of these accomplices. Shave. Luffy suddenly disappeared from sight, terrifying the sailors. Their horror only grew when they suddenly spotted him surrounded by unconscious bodies, Nami literally carried in his arms bridal style. Thank you, she whispered, shaking in relief, if you weren't here. Relax, Nami. We're gonna beat that Arlong today. He'll never bother you ever again. Don't just stand there, you morons, shoot them. A dozen Marines readied their muskets and fired, only for a wall of white clouds to suddenly appear between the bullets and the pirates. Huh? She has a devil fruit too? He never said anything about that? Who's he, asshole? Nijiko had picked up the colonel's firearm and was now aiming right between his legs, unbridled fury in her eyes. Answer me, who is he? Okay, I confess. It was Arlong, he sobbed, cracking in an instant. He's been paying me off for years now. And when that girl said she had almost all of the money, he offered me a 30% cut. You, bastard. Nijiko stomped down on his nethers as hard as possible, throwing the gun away in her anger. You're half the reason we've been stuck in this nightmare. And you're doing all of this for money? Fuck you, how heartless can you get? Please, mercy. Nezumi was suddenly hauled to his feet, the collar of his jacket in Luffy's iron grip. The pirate's eyes were so full of white-hot rage that the colonel instantly broke into a sweat. My grandpa told me about Marines like you, the asshats who just want money and power. I wonder if I can call him and have him deal with you. Wait, your grandfather? He mused before remembering Luffy's last name and he almost fainted on the spot. Why you don't mean Monkey D. Garp? TT the hero of the Marines? Yep, that's him. Man, he is going to be pissed when he learns about this. No, DD don't tell him. I'll do anything. Forget about the money, I'll leave. Luffy then noticed a Marine to his left pointing a gun straight at him from only a few feet away. Without even looking, he lashed an arm out and crushed the barrel in his hand. Get the fuck out of here, go back to your base, and call someone. I don't care who, but you're going to spill the beans about your little operation. And if I find out you didn't. Luffy unleashed the full force of his conqueror's haki, flooring Nezumi and his entire squad like they were bugs. He turned and saw Genzo was on his knees and the sisters were both looking in total awe. Hey, sorry, might have gone a little overboard, he chuckled before literally throwing Nezumi out of the orchard like a sack of trash. Luffy then went around collecting the unconscious sailors, but not without plucking any loose cash or valuables. Funnily enough, the men of Branch 16 seemed to all have wallets stuffed with berry, designer watches and customized firearms. Holy cow, Nijiko gulped as Luffy literally cleaned them out. Who the hell is he? He's my captain, Nami said with complete pride, and the man I owe my life to. Now do you see why I believe in him? Arlong is going down today. As the other ladies of the Straw Hat Pirates arrived, all of them recounting about how they felt more of the fishmen that terrorized these islands, Nijiko actually felt it. A true spark of hope. For the first time in 8 years, she was looking forward to tomorrow.